to Julie Briggs, the first meeting, and she's the interim elections manager. At the end is Lucy Harrison, who keeps us all in order and does the minutes. Thank you. And then on my extreme left is Jim Fern, who's going to video us all, hopefully, this evening. In front of me, there's Amanda Brown, the Economic Development Manager. There's Steve Capes next to her, and Karen Henriksen, the Director of Resources. So that, I think, covers that for now. We'll go to the first item on the agenda, and that's apologies. Lucy, can you give us the apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from councillors Archer, Dobbs, G, Gretrix, Linthwaite, Wilton, Burton and Boothroyd.
Thank you very much. The next one on the agenda is public participation, and we've got one person, and that's Mr. Philip Sunderland, a local resident who wishes to make a statement. Mr. Sunderland, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
At the previous council meeting, the leader promised a new approach, particularly in relation to the highway, to the Gypsy site, and as one of his main challenges. In all fairness, I have to say that what has happened so far, this is what has happened so far. This new approach has been characterised by 3 main themes, in my view. These are naivety, inadequacy and incompleteness. Setting out a code of practice for travellers to sign and abide by is naive in the extreme and not really worth the paper it's printed on. Expecting them to clear up, not conduct commercial activities, use toilets provided, just to name 3 issues, is never going to work. No sanctions will help or be enforceable. Inadequacy. The ARC report is littered with inaccuracies, many of which were highlighted at Monday's committee meeting. In particular, the Matlock bus station site is easily within 100 metres of housing, screened by trees. What about when the trees fall most of the weekend and holidays, and particularly in the illumination season? Incompleteness. The review started with 36 sites, subsequently reduced to 20, not specified in any generic way, just in a generic way. For instance, Matlock's outer, Sudbury outer. And from the latest, these 20 sites, they whittled down to 6 sites for consultation regarding the temporary site status. What a surprise. Nothing in Ashbourne, nothing in Bakewell, despite there being a huge showground area and despite the Ashbourne having a huge airfield site which is being developed. This stretches credibility and suggests, at best, unconscious bias, in my view, and more likely conscious bias. Consultation results will be obvious from the feedback already covered from the 25 speakers on Monday evening. But at least if you want to spread the load, do so fairly. Matlock is fed up with the noise and the pollution and all the rest of the issues that we have to deal with from 6 o'clock every morning. I suspect the first train in the morning wakes the travellers up and then they kick off. Finance. This is the one thing that's completely absent in any consideration so far. There's no cost consideration, no impact assessment, no consideration of the loss of business to the local economy. As I understand it, estimates around £1 million per year in respect to Matlock alone.
You've got 30 seconds left. Thank you.
Any feedback to the committees and full council must include not only social, economic and personal effect on the travellers, visitors and residents. Ideally, get them a permanent site sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Almost bang on 3 minutes. Thank you very much for that. We'll move to item 3, which is interests. There's quite a comprehensive agenda this evening with a lot of projects and things like this, so I would ask everybody to reflect on whether they do have any interests. Does anybody wish to declare any interest at this time? Thank you. That's none. Thank you. We're going to item 4 now, which is leaders' announcements. Councillor Flitter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I feel I must begin tonight's proceedings by congratulating our Labour colleagues of our MP at the recent general election. and we wish to John Whitby in office, and we have written to him to invite him to engage with this council on several issues. I must also express my delight at the Liberal Democrat successors bringing 71 seats in Parliament, a clear indication of a dissatisfied country with the previous government, who are obviously out of touch with the electorate. I also have to reflect on the professionalism of our election staff and team throughout this process. We had a best turnout in Derbyshire, and we were ranked 36th in turnout out of the 650 constituencies in the UK. We have received a letter, an encouraging letter, from the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, which talks about a fundamental reset that is national government, expressing the commitment to work with local and regional authorities built on mutual respect, genuine collaboration and meaningful engagement to improve local services throughout or through economic growth. This view was echoed at the previous MCA meeting by Claire Ward and the new Mayor of the East Midlands, and even this morning the Prime Minister in his speech in Runcorn about GB Energy referred to a true partnership working. I attended the East Midlands Council AGM on July the 12th, and as normal with AGMs, there were reports, election to members on certain roles. But it was particularly interesting to note that although GDP growth in the East Midlands over the last 20 years has been better than most other regions, yet we have to note that over many years investment in transport per head has been the lowest in this country. I also spoke on the recruitment and retention work stream, noting the comments of the pilot scheme in the North East, and also had discussions about travellers and the local plan. Surprisingly, we are not alone. It was also reassuring to listen to James Nash, who is the MP for Rushcliffe, raising the issue of flooding and the absence within reports, and the need for further dialogue. I was also surprised over lunch to meet Councillor Edwards Walker, who was also present. He was attending one of the 1 year 1 councillor course. I do hope he enjoyed it, and I hope that he learnt some useful knowledge. It's nice when you can meet somebody at an event that's of a different political persuasion and still have time to chat. I want to thank Councillor Franks and the PA members of the Gypsy and Traveller Working Group for their professionalism and calm consideration of a very difficult issue over previous months, and the way that they have conducted themselves under pressure, especially on Monday evening. And I would also like to thank, although he's not here tonight, Councillor Whitehead. Oh, he is here. Right. Whom I know has been under huge pressure from his own community for the way he summed up the situation in a fair and logical manner. However, take politics out of this debate and solve a very delicate and emotive subject. But alas, the Conservative opposition continue to feed the public with misinformation, and I refer to Facebook and posters that have been spread around parts of the district. They really talked about the negative comments about, I've lost the trace here, I must be a bit like Biden. They sort of said on their posters and on Facebook that they referred to making a decision on sites when we weren't making a decision on sites. We were making a decision on consultation, and that's what it is all about. But they continue to produce these negative comments, not realising their 20 years of being in control, or even offering a credible alternative solution. It's because of this negativity that tonight I've decided to concentrate on some good news. It is official that the Derbyshire Dales Parks and Gardens in Ashbourne, Bakewell and Matlock are blooming great, after they have each won a coveted Green Flag Award from Keep Britain Tidy. Bath Gardens in Bakewell has now been awarded the Green Flag for the last 4 years, and Matlock's Hawleys Park is a winner for the previous 17 years, consecutive year. But I'm particularly pleased that our Ashbourne Park is celebrating its Green Flag status for the first time, after being narrowly missing last year's. This is actually a tribute to the Green and Clean staff, because of the hard work and effort that they put in to their daily chores. Throughout the 30 parks and gardens that we own across the District Dales, our green spaces are a haven for the young and old alike. There are beautiful Derbyshire Dales, which crucially also attracts visitors, which is vital for this district's economy. The District Council coordinated a meeting in Bakewell for the Bakewell Banking Hub stakeholders on Friday the 12th of July. And as you know, we've expressed a wish to secure a banking hub in Bakewell following the closure of NatWest Branch. The meeting was attended by John Whitby, the MP. Stakeholders agreed to collaborate with preparing a business case to enable Mr Whitby to progress discussions with the government minister. It was proposed that the Bakewell Town Council coordinate this activity, and I'm sure that we shall give them every opportunity to help them. Early bird tickets on sale for this year's District Council's Matlock Bath illuminations, where prices have been held for a limited time, and I'm delighted to report that we have sold in excess of 4,000 tickets, which is a great start to the proceedings. If you have visited Hawleys Park recently, you will have noticed that the old skate park has now been cleared. Work will soon be built with weld custom frames before installing riding services, and the facility is due to begin in September. And a few people have been asking, why is this work being carried out in the summer holidays? Well, the answer is simple. The old skateboard was no longer fit for purpose, and it was the community group who we work with to make this happen. It was their wish that the work would proceed as quickly as possible. And we're also carrying out groundwork tests in advance of the park's pathways to be resurfaced in another project which will again start in September. All these improvements are being funded by government. Also in Hawleys and other major parks, banners have also been gone up, making it clear that our public space protection orders forbid barbecues. We are trying to urge residents and visitors to respect our beautiful open spaces and bring a picnic instead. Coincidentally, our neighbourhood team organised a community safety event in Hawleys and a couple of weeks ago, and many are offering professional advice, all things community safety wise. Thank you for everyone that helped this successful event to be put together. Looking forward, next month our third annual green event will be taking place at the Business Agricultural Centre on Saturday the August the 17th. We will be showcasing solutions to the climate and nature crisis. Visitors will have the opportunity to meet with local suppliers, green technologies such as heat pumps, solar panels and electric vehicle parking and charging points. And just in case you missed it, a landowner's appeal against the Derbyshire Dales, listing Starkholme's allotments as an asset of community value, was dismissed at the end of May. It was good to see our defence of designation of Starkholme's allotments as an asset of community value vindicated at the tribunal. We have always recognised the importance of allotments and in the Starkholme's community. We will continue to work with stakeholders to seek a positive outcome. And I've nearly finished. But not quite. Because I'm delighted to see that our partnership on Hurst Farm Heritage Trail project moving forward at last. We're securing more woodland volunteers in preparation for the busy autumn season. All equipment and training is provided. If you'd like to get outdoors and take part, learn new skills and help nature, please find details on our Facebook page. We've also joined with Erewash and Amber Valley councils to survey a sample of private rented properties across our district to help us understand the standard of accommodation and the work required to maintain them. The surveys are being carried out by a specialist survey company which will work with us until the end of August. Selected properties will continue to receive letters containing further details. Sadly, finally, our condolences to one of our former councillors, Judith Twigg, and her family, following the death of her husband, Leonard Twigg. Leonard himself was a former district councillor and also served for many years on Bakewell Town Council. He loyally supported Judith as consort during her 2-year terms as Civic Chair, 92-93 and 2011-12. Leonard, who was particularly supportive of the local theatre, was immensely well respected within the Bakewell community, and he was a true public servant and will sadly be missed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We move on to item 5, which is the Civic Chair's announcements, and all on your desk you will see that Councillor Slack has very kindly tapped out. I don't know whether Councillor Slack has tapped out, but it's been tapped out that he's been a very busy Civic Chair over the last couple of months, and I'd like to thank him very much and his consort for the effort that they've done. Peter, thank you. Thank you, Chair. What I'll do is I've just asked the question whether these can be put on the minutes, because I think people need to see what hard work that Councillor Slack has been doing, so that'll be done. So thank you very much once again, Councillor Slack. Move on to item 6, which is committees. There's quite a number of committees here, and this is to receive the non-exempt minutes of the committees shown below, so it's to receive them. I'll just go through them very quickly. There's the non-exempt minutes for the Governance and Resources Committee on the 21st of March, Licensing Appeals Committee 26th of March, Licensing Appeals Committee Subcommittee 27th of March, Full Council 4th of April, Planning Committee on the 9th of April, Licensing and Appeals Subcommittee on the 17th of April, the Local Plan Subcommittee on the 17th of April, Biodiversity Subcommittee on the 18th of April, Full Council on the 23rd of May, Licensing and Appeals Subcommittee on the 30th of May, Community and Environment Committee on the 30th of May, Planning Committee on the 11th of June, Licensing and Appeals Committee on the 18th of June, and finally the Planning Committee on the 9th of July. Has anybody got any issues that they'd like to... Councillor Flitter?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Just like to point out an error on the council meeting on the 23rd of May. On page 8, 2.34, it does state that Councillor Slack seconded his own motion to become Civic Chair. I know Councillor Buttle did move the motion, but I can't remember who seconded it. But obviously that needs to be corrected.
Councillor Dobbs. Councillor Dobbs. Peter Dobbs. You got the wrong Peter.
Thank you very much for raising that, Councillor Flitter. Councillor Bull, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wasn't put down as attending the actual meeting. My name is not on the actual attendance, and I was going to bring up the fact that Councillor Flitter's just brought up about Peter Slack, but
about Councillor Slack's keenness to become the Civic Chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
I propose second and everything else. Yeah.
Thank you very
you.
much. And can we amend that as well? Thank you. Right, moving on. Now we've got questions. Under Rule Procedure 15. Questions for any members. I think Councillor Hobson, you've got questions. Thank you. Has anybody got copies of the question?
Can Councillor Flitter explain the exact decision-making process for granting the urgent decision to give an extra hour of free parking to residents between 3 and 4 each day, and also provide the financial background in making the decision, together with any projected financial implications for Derbyshire Dales District Council? Thank you.
Councillor Flitter.
Thank you, Chair. An urgent decision was taken by the Director, the Director of Corporate and Customer Services on 16th of February 2024, following the consultation with the Chair of the Community and Environment Committee. Further consultation had taken place with the leaders of the Progressive Alliance, and offering free parking during this time had also been discussed at the car park review group and was seen to be favourable. It had been intended that the decision would be taken by committee as in usual practice, but delays in progress on the car park review working group and the impending deadline associated with the production of the resident concession permits meant we needed to work at a greater pace.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter. You haven't answered the question or provided any of this financial information, and I do not believe a robust decision-making process was gone through. I've been denied the opportunity to ask an urgent question regarding the Gypsy and Traveller Working Group consultation, which only came out after 4 p.m. today and 2 days late, despite many of the residents in this area looking hourly for it.
Councillor Hobson, this is a...
yes, I'm coming to my question.
No, it's a supplementary question to Councillor Flitter.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. About what the...
Yes,
alluding
it's to do
to
with
the...
finance. It's to do with finance.
Right.
Reinforcing what our speakers said today, thank you for coming, that many matters, including finance, have not been adequately considered by this council. And I do not think that a robust decision-making process was gone through. Would Councillor Flitter agree that this council decision was made in a hurry without due process?
Councillor Flitter.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just have to remind Councillor Hobson that when you ask a question, you don't add something in at the last minute. It's what's written on the paper, which is what I answered, which does not reflect on finance. That was an issue I thought may turn up in a supplementary question, and I am ready to answer that. And the resident survey in 2023, April of 2023, highlighted the desire for local residents to see the hours of the resident permit extended. A vast amount, 74% of car parking income to this council is taken before 3 p.m. Data obtained for transactions which took place between 3 and 4 over a period spanning from November 21 to October 22, and the income generated was only £72,000. An estimate between 20 and 25% of transactions made by residents. I can report to Council that in the first quarter of this financial year, car parking income via pay and display machines and pay by phone is up more than £100,000 above the budget, indicating that the extended hours for resident concessions do not appear to have affected income levels. In addition, income of sales of the second concession permits are up as well. This council received £3,016 for the whole of last year from the sale of the second resident permits. So far this year, that has exceeded £4,300, which well exceeds our expected budget and income of £3,050. There is also a very good feedback from residents at the time of promoting this scheme. And I have to just comment that being in attendance of the Ashbourne Reborn Programme Board meeting on Monday, we were complimented on the decision to move to 3 o'clock instead of 4, because that was seen to be an advantage of work being carried out by the County Council on their programme of works, because it meant that residents could actually park in Shawcroft and walk to the school instead of clogging up the road. So I hope that does answer that question, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have another question, Councillor Hobson?
I do, thank you.
Thank you.
Please can Councillor Flitter give a commitment that the splash pad water facilities at Ashbourne, Bakewell and Matlock will be available for the whole school summer holidays for the benefit of all children visiting these parks?
Councillor Flitter.
Sorry. Yes. Well, this is like an analogy of buying a car. When you buy a car, you go around and you look at the bodywork, and it's wonderful. That's what attracts you to the car. Then you go inside and look at the interior. And some folk like myself get down on the floor and we look underneath for any rust, make sure the bodywork is okay. But when you lift that body, that bonnet, and you look inside the engine, you probably see a nice, neat, clean engine. But that has mechanical parts. And those mechanical parts, you have no idea when they are going to fail or where they're going to be successful. And that is the same with this question about splash parks. They have engineering, they have mechanical parts, and we cannot give a cast iron guarantee that they will not fail within this next few months. We have to remember that they are 15 years plus old, and they're coming to the end of their life, as in Matlock. Now, what I can say is that if anything untoward happens with any of our children's play facilities throughout the Dales, our Green and Clean team will be on board trying to solve that problem as soon as possible. But don't forget the old adage when you go to the garage. If you need parts, you've got to wait for them. And that's the only guarantee that I can give. But it's a guarantee that I will make that our own Green and Clean team will be on there trying to do the best they can so that the children of Derbyshire Dales have a fair and lovely play summer.
Thank you. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter. 14 months in office and nothing new from the Progressive Alliance. You talk about being out of touch with the electorate. Have you watched the C&E meeting on Monday? Have you read all those emails? The residents of Roseley feel marginalised and ignored by this council, as do the other residents and businesses on the other sites put forward. Would Councillor
Hobson,
I know the question.
no.
Now, yes, now.
You asked a question.
Yeah, I'm asking,
Your supplementary question will be about the splash pads.
It is.
Well,
No.
how is it that it's about Roseley?
I'm going to say
There isn't a splash pad at Roseley.
Would Councillor Flitter come to the playground on the Chatsworth Road at Roseley and look at the extremely poor conditions of the facilities available to the children of this village? They would love to see you, Steve.
I am not averse, Chair, to visit any part of Derbyshire Dales and see if there is a problem and what we can do with it. If you remember, a few months ago, I went up to, now where was it? Overhaddon. They had a problem with their car park and toilet facilities. I went up there particularly myself and met the Bakewell councillors so that we could decide if there was any action to be taken, and we would come back and discuss it with officers. That assurity will go along with any issue that comes up in the Derbyshire Dales. I am not stuck in Matlock. I will visit Derbyshire Dales and I will have a look at problems and then report back to officers. And it was the officers that will instruct their teams to take appropriate action.
Thank you. Right, we'll move on now, and it's an oversight of my fault. We need to receive the committee non-exempt minutes. Yeah. So, would anybody like the ones that from Councillor Hughes? Will you move them? And Councillor Butler second them. All those in favour of receiving those minutes? Thank you very much, Lucy. Are you good? Yeah. Yeah, happy with that? Yeah. That's moved then. Thank you. Sorry about that. We now move on to item 8, which is a proposal of notice under Rule of Procedure 16. Councillor O'Brien, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I come on to this, I think it'd be remiss of me in relation to the kind remarks made by the leader in his opening statement not to congratulate our Green Party colleagues on their performance and to offer commiserations to our Conservative Party colleagues. Right, Chair, in moving these recommendations 1 and 2, I'm going to leave it to my seconder and colleague Councillor Neil Battle to speak to them. Since the agenda was published, I've received many messages, emails and letters welcoming the proposal. I do hope that all members here this evening will put aside any political differences and show the same level of support. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Buttle.
Oh, thank you. I was rather hoping that Peter was going to cover all the technical aspects, so I'll let you read those. And I noticed we're writing to Angela Rayner. I've got to say, that is just fantastic. That really cheers me up. That's by the by. I'm going to talk to this really from a very parochial point of view. From the people of Tideswell, they've been there since 1254, I think.
They became a market town, they were incorporated, and since then it's thrived. It's been pretty excellent. It's been a good place to live. But recently things have been not quite so great. If I think back to just a few weeks ago, I took a friend, an artist friend, round Tideswell for the Wakes Week, and there's immense amounts of community engagement. There's folk art, native art, crazy art. There's just things all over the place, and you go round one bit of village and there's just crazy stuff going on, and another bit and it's yet odder, and it's all really colourful. And I took Paul, my friend, up to Lower Terrace Road, and that always used to be a fantastic visit. You know, you had just no idea what they were going to be on with. I remember one time there was a 12-foot shark sticking out of somebody's roof. You know, like there was just lots of things going on. The Town Eddington shark, that was. And this time, there was nothing there. The whole row of cottages had gone. It was no longer part of our village. It was a business. All it brought to our village was parking arguments. And that is entirely down to holiday cottages. And it's just a dreadful thing. Those little cottages could have had young families. I remember, like, there were old ladies who used to give me American cream soda when I went and played out there. And, you know, like, it was just, you know, like, it was a real community, and it's not there now. And I think we need to be able to bring consultation and the planning system to bear. And to do that, we're going to need to get Angela Rayner involved with bringing forward this this legislation. I think she might just need to make a ministerial statement or something like that. I was hoping Peter was going to deal with that detail. Now, like in Tideswell, we have, I don't know, 700, 800 houses, and 134 of them are holiday cottages. And you're like, that's just not Tideswell. It's all across the Dales. We've got 50 second homes as well. Last time I went off on second homes, I got quoted in the Daily Mail. Not the Daily Mail, the Daily Telegraph. They were very kind, but they didn't mention I was green. Anyway, that's we've got Lytton, which I also represent. In the national park lists it as having between 40 and 60% holiday homes. Now, how can you? All right, it's still got a school, and it's still, you know, like there are still people living there, and they are still creating lifetime friendships and all those sorts of relationships at that school. But it's not as viable as it used to be, and we have to take action. We have to bring some sort of proposals through the local plan to allow the communities to fight for their right to exist, to thrive. So I could probably, I know of one house where the person has connections to the village, but they live in Chicago, and they come and visit there 2 days a year. You know, like, that is just, and I know they have friends, they come over, and, you know, like, we need to be able to take some sort of action as a community, and to enjoy, well, to bring things together. So anyway, I'd like you to, I'm seconding this, and I'd like you to vote for it. Thank you.
Yeah, I just think we need a bit of clarity about what we're actually, everybody may have read the motion, but for those people that are watching this, who may be watching this, there isn't a lot of clarity about what we want to do. So it might be an idea if one of you just goes through why it's necessary to do what we're proposing to do.
I'm happy to put this to Peter if you're keen, otherwise I'll have a go, but I won't be quite as on the ball.
Chair, if you like, I can read out the background to the motion and the recommendations themselves. Is that what you're suggesting?
I think it'd be a good idea, because I'm very interested in Councillor Buttle's shark, but I think it's more important to get the actual meat on the bones in relation to the motion. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Chair. The previous government, previous Conservative government, introduced proposals to limit the increase in the number of holiday homes through the introduction of a new use classes order such that they would require planning permission. And this council unanimously supported those proposals. The council welcomed the proposals because in many of our local communities the number of holiday homes has grown to such an extent that their sustainability is being adversely affected, and in particular younger working families are being priced out of the local housing market. Consultation by the government on the proposals, and in particular the number of nights for which properties can be let before planning permission is required, ended on the 7th of June this year. However, the change of government means that there is uncertainty as to if or when the changes to planning legislation will be introduced, despite the primary legislation having been passed in the Levelling Up Act. This uncertainty is particularly unhelpful to this council, as it was intended that our revised local plan would include policies to address the holiday homes issue in relevant towns and villages in the district. Without the necessary enabling changes to the national planning legislation, this will not, however, be possible. I'm therefore recommending that this council writes to the Deputy Prime Minister, highlighting the issue of holiday homes in the Derbyshire Dales, urging her to introduce, without the necessary secondary legislation, to bring holiday homes within the auspices of the relevant town and country planning orders through a new use classes order. I'm sorry if that sounds a bit technical, but that's because it's quite a technical issue here, and we need to be correct. The second recommendation, because this is an issue which is relevant to a number of authorities with similar issues to the Derbyshire Dales, that we make parallel representations to the East Midlands Mayor, Claire Ward, and to the Local Government Association to engage local authorities with similar issues to the Derbyshire Dales. And the third recommendation is, because as we know, although we're one Derbyshire Dales, we're covered by two local planning areas, one of which includes Tideswell and Lytton. So the third recommendation is that we urge the Peak District National Park Authority to make similar representations to the Deputy Prime Minister, given that the holiday homes issue is particularly acute in many communities within the national park. I hope, Chair, that provides sufficient background and clarity for members to engage in discussion and debate.
Thank you. We'll now move to questions. Councillor Nash.
Just to clarify, when the date that the planning permission ended, that it is 7th of June 24, not 23 as published in the notes.
That'll be amended. Thank you. Councillor O'Brien, are you happy to have that amendment made? Thumbs up. Councillor Butler, are you happy to that? Are there any more questions in relation to this? Councillor Bull, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, I do understand where we're coming from as regards the second homes issue and holiday homes and the lights. And as you've said, we voted unanimously to go by what the government had proposed, and we do put our own policies in order. The local plan is a work in progress, and it can be added to on and on and on. So I don't see, we have made provisions as regards charging for the empty houses or second council taxes and the likes to deter some of these issues. So, you know, some of it I just feel that we're going, and I do know obviously the government that's come in, they're looking to wanting to build more houses and the likes, and I think it will be soon that they come up with all the new legislation, and I just wonder, us going to all this trouble of getting on board with everybody else and saying do this, and write to them and do the other. We stick to what we've put in our own policies and work with them at the time while we're on the legislation of doing so. Thank you. Sorry, my question was, why do you feel that we have to do this and change it now when it is the local plan is a work in progress, and things could be added in on our own policies?
Can you answer that, Councillor O'Brien? Please.
Yes, I can do. Bear in mind, Councillor Bull, this applies to holiday homes. The second homes issue is being addressed primarily through the changes to council tax regime. While you say the local plan review is work in progress, that's true, but the work in progress has to be finalised by this October. And if we don't have the necessarily enabling legislation from the government in place before October, it's simply not it is not possible for us in our local plan to include the relevant policies.
Thank you. Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, regarding these holiday homes, would these properties that are being taken up as holiday homes, would they be, is there any data that said that they would be affordable for local people? You know, I'm all for the local people getting accommodation where they've been born and grown up. I'm all for that. But would they be able to afford these homes if they come on the open market anyway? You know, is there any data that says they could afford? You know, because we seem to have a very technical problem in understanding the terms what's affordable, and the other thing is the other night what's temporary. We don't seem to have an answer for either of those. So if you have any answers, thank you.
Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Butler.
Well, I don't have any data. Councillor Lees, I'd ask you to bear in mind this recommendation relating to the changes in planning legislation simply enables local authorities to require planning consent before an existing permanent residence is transformed into a holiday home.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes. Question.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have a question, and can I come back in debate as well? The question really is: would Peter and Neil accept that we could also make representation to other councils, other district councils neighbouring the Peak Park, in addition to the mayoral authority and ADLC?
I think I can probably answer that one. The answer is yes, and I believe the Local Government Association independent group is going to be bringing forward a motion to don't know what's happened to the brain, but yeah, like they're bringing forward a motion at the next big meeting. and so it is going to be brought forward, but we could do with moving this along. So,
thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Burfoot.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I ask if this legislation would cover increasing number of Airbnbs, well, throughout the country, not just in Derbyshire Dales? Would there be a minimum size of property which was covered by this legislation?
Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Buttle.
Airbnbs are not identified as a separate entity in this context. They're considered as holiday homes. As the background to the motion says, there was a consultation by the previous government on how many days a holiday home should be let for. How many days a home should be let for before it is considered a holiday home, as opposed to an incidental weekend let to someone. But Airbnbs are considered as holiday homes.
Thank you. Well, it's Councillor O'Brien. You've moved that. You've moved the motion. Councillor Buttle second the motion. We'll now move into debate. Does anybody want to question anything further? Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. I voted for this last time because on the surface it seems an excellent idea. But after that, you know, you read more and people get in touch with you. I think there's sometimes, you know, I like to rent a holiday cottage and go into the community. I'm sure others of you do as well. You know, it isn't just fat cats that have got these holiday cottages. It's perhaps somebody's pension. You know, they do contribute something. So I want to listen to what everybody said before I make up my mind. I think Mrs. Bull made a good point with, you know, we're hearing that Labour are going to build lots and lots of houses. That's going to make an impact on the Derbyshire Dales, I'm sure. But a point I brought up at local plan the other night, as we were all campaigning during the general election, and I would also like to congratulate our new MP, and I look forward to meeting him at some point. You know, that's democracy for you. But I saw lots of empty houses. I know we've got an empty house as officer, but I'd like to see something. It was taken back from the meeting by Mike Hayes, but I'd like to see something where we could, or there was a facility for also members of the public to say where these empty houses are and assist those houses to come back into use. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thanks, Chair. I can obviously see the merits of Peter's motion. I've got a couple of villages that I'm involved with that are blighted by the number of holiday lets they have. Parking is very difficult and it causes a lot of grief. But I'd just like to make a shout out that, you know, Derbyshire Dales, we do rely on tourism, and these holiday lets bring a lot of people in. We all know that anybody who stays overnight in the Peak Park spends more, sorry, not the Peak Park, but in Derbyshire Dales, usually spends a lot more money that's supporting the pubs, the restaurants and the shops. So I think we just need to be a little bit mindful of that. Unlike Sue, I'm going to wait and see what others have got to say before making my mind up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. I do find it fairly somewhat appropriate that we write to Angela Rayner, because she is well versed on the topic of second homes.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter.
Oh, was that it? There's a joke in there somewhere. I just wanted to make it a point, Chair. I mean, I'm obviously going to support this motion. But, you know, we all think or talk about this subject as if all the properties are going to be in the leafy suburbs and very expensive. In fact, it's just the reverse in some instances. In our towns, we've got smaller properties, smaller value, lower value, which are easily in the capability of youngsters to go on the property ladder, and they are taken up by these holiday homes. In fact, I can list a couple of homes that were purchased from the local authority or from the housing association that are also holiday homes, and this has taken away the right for local family members to stay within the Derbyshire Dales. So I shall give full support.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter. Councillor Boothroyd.
I just want to make 2 points here. I wrote to the Peak National Park yesterday to ask about changing a small amount of wooden panelling on some windows, and I had to ask that question. My next door neighbour bought the house from he lived in St Albans at the time, bought the house and converted it into a holiday home with absolutely no planning permission required whatsoever. And my second point is, when it comes to the impact of tourism, I live in Tideswell and I represent villages entirely within the Peak National Park. I spend money in my community every single day of the year, not just February half term, Easter holidays, the school holidays and things like that. So while I live next to a restaurant that relies entirely on tourism, and I chat to those people every single day, we have to be very careful that we don't completely fall out of an argument that having empty villages for 10 months a year is good for our local economy.
Thank you. Councillor Maelstrom.
Thank you, yes. Firstly, I just wanted to correct Councillor Nash, actually. The consultation on this, which was run by the Conservative government, actually was last year, so the motion is correct. It did end on the 7th of June 23. And I just wanted to make the point, really, that all this motion does, and all that Michael Gove's proposal did, and I don't agree with Michael Gove on many things, but this is just about giving power to local planning authorities. It doesn't mean the local planning authorities have to use that power to shut down holiday homes or make it harder. It gives us the power to do what we want to do, what's right for our local area in a very locally specific way. And the consultation document clarifies that the government is consulting on planning measures that would help local areas have greater ability to control any future increase in the number of short-term lets in their area and support the retention of existing properties to buy or to rent. And that's all it does. So this ought to be getting cross-party support, I would expect, without any difficulty.
Thank you, and thank you for noticing that error of the error. So yes, thank you. Councillor Shelley, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this is an excellent motion. That the nature of a lot of the holiday homes, I know being on the local plan subcommittee, we've received evidence that many of those are actually very small properties, which would be precisely the ones which families and those people of more limited means might just be able to get onto the housing ladder to purchase particularly if they receive assistance from the bank of mum and dad. So I think it's very important that we remember that. We're not talking about large homes. These are precisely the ones that we want to come back for local residents, and there is evidence there to support that. Sometimes this council gets accused of being quite a small player in things. Sometimes people say that we're too small. I disagree with that, actually. I think we're small enough to care, and we're large enough to punch above our weight as well. But with an issue like this, I think we do need to work together to lobby the new government. And I welcome the change of government, but I think it's also important to remember that the new government is largely represented by MPs in urban areas, large urban areas, and we've got to fight especially hard to make sure that the needs of rural areas like this are not overlooked. So I would merely caution our Progressive Alliance colleagues on that one and ask them to double down their efforts to make sure that the needs of Derbyshire Dales and other places like this, where housing is being squeezed for people at the bottom end of the scale, are considered in the stampede to get new legislation through. Thank you. Oh, and one final point: if you want to report an empty property, I've just found the web page here, Councillor Hobson. It's just look up Derbyshire Dales report an empty property, and it takes you straight to it.
Thank you. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. A number of years ago now, I put a question to Leader of the Council at the time, Lewis Rose, about this very subject, about holiday homes and second homes being taken over from local people struggling to get housing. It was sympathetic, Lewis were, and as he always says, and it developed a little bit, and again when Councillor Gary Purdy was leader, I brought it again, and he was more sympathetic because at that time it was growing in numbers. Some villages were getting quite a lot of homes shut up over the winter months, and schools were closing and communities being destroyed, and we've now, last year we managed to get it through the council with the Conservatives supporting it as well. But I must straight away that I fully support Councillor Peter O'Brien's motion. But we must realise that in my ward, we're not entirely in the north of the county district like a lot of Peak Park are. We're in the south, and we're not a really tourist area. But we're losing vast numbers of cottages now to second homes, people coming in. A second home comes up for sale, a local person goes for it, he doesn't stand a chance. He's bought up by someone out of the area, has got a number of holiday homes all over the place, and they're making big profits out of it. Let's make no mistake about that. And the people who are suffering are people, our families, who have to move. Some have to move over to the other side, to Ripley, Alfred and Amber Valley, where there isn't the same push on holiday homes. So I fully support Peter O'Brien's move, and I ask everyone to vote for it, because really this should 100% council tax is on the second homes is good, but we need planning officers to be in control. We need planning officers to say there's enough. And in my opinion, it's too much now, and that's the way it should be. The planning department should take control of this locally. So I fully support Peter O'Brien's motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Slack. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to put one additional point, and that is that not all holiday homes are little. Some of them are quite big, some of them modern, and with a lot of bedrooms, and some of them therefore can accommodate a large number of people. And I heard this week of a house in Matlock Bath, which is on a narrow lane with virtually no parking, where typically there are 6 cars appear outside the holiday let, and block up the road for everybody else, and cause chaos with the local community. That actually happens similarly in Cavendish Road in Matlock, and we heard in the planning committee a few months ago about a village where a modern 4 or 5 bedroom house, they wanted it space converted for another room, and the neighbours all came along and said their life was made a misery by this holiday let because of the parking and because of the noise that the holiday let people made. Some of these houses, mainly the bigger ones, are used for parties, and they're called party houses, and all sorts of noisy activity goes on in those houses. So I think Councillor Wayne would have heard this as well as we heard it at Chinese New Year, when there was Chinese fireworks were let off, and they were far louder than those fireworks that you could be bought locally in the UK. They were foreign fireworks, and they were more like war. They were really very loud, and all the poor dogs in the neighbourhood were distressed, as were the babies, and as were we, because the noise was greater than our television. So in the house, and this was in when all the windows were closed. So it's not only about small houses that could be used for affordable houses, it's also about the use of these houses for other activities, and they are used for other activities, and particularly the overcrowding that those other activities may cause. So there is genuine justification for talking about them in the same way as you would talk about a guest house, rather than just a house used for domestic accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bertha Mister.
Thanks, Chair. Interestingly, and it's only a small point this, but I'm aware of a number of properties in Matlock which were given controversially planning consent for holiday homes in the past, and presumably the owners couldn't gain enough income from that use, and they've become rented properties since. So that's an observation which is worth thinking about. It doesn't happen very often, but that is something that has happened.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nash.
Thank you, Chair. If I can move to a vote, I'll stop talking, but if I can't, then I've got plenty to say.
Well, we've heard a lot. If you're going to enlighten us further, then feel free, but if you're saying that you want the question to be put, but we're going to have to go back to the substantive motion, and that'll have to be agreed by Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Butler. So do you want to...
I'm happy to park my conversation. It will add value to what's been said, but not enough to keep the meeting moving.
So at the end of the day, Councillor O'Brien, are you happy to go back to the substantive motion that it was 2023 and not 2024, please?
Yes, I'd just like to make a few winding up comments, but if anyone else wants to make any points,
Can I just ask one question before you do that? Are you happy to support that, Councillor Buttle?
I am.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien, if you want to come back then, thank you.
Yes, just in relation to, if you like, some of our more sceptical colleagues who said they wanted to listen to the debate. I hope they've had their scepticism answered, and I want to thank Councillor Shelley and Councillor Maelstrom. I think have made two really important points. Firstly, yes, we have a new government, and Councillor Shelley is right. It is more urban focused. So, leaving any party politics aside, we as a essentially rural authority do need to use our rural expertise to bring that to the attention of the Deputy Prime Minister. And Councillor Maelstrom is quite right. This is legislation which enables this council through its planning committee to be able to take decisions itself, to work out whether the balance between supporting our tourism industry and enterprises and meeting our obligations to ensure we have housing for our local communities, to ensure we can get that balance right. It is about giving this council the means to achieve that balance. So, as I said, I hope my colleagues sitting across the room do feel able to support the recommendations now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Buttle, you can't come back and say anything. It's just the proposer that can. Days the rules. So, we'll. So it's been moved. It's been seconded. So all those in favour of the motion 2023, please raise your hands in favour. Okay, Lucy. All those against? Do we have any abstentions, please? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, that being the 23rd of May 2024. And basically, we're looking to approve these minutes. Would anybody like to move that we approve the minutes, please? Councillor Bull?
Yeah, yes, Chair. Obviously, with the amendment.
With the amendment, yes.
Of what we'd already spoken about.
So Councillor Sack didn't vote for himself, yes.
Yeah, and I was here.
Yes, and you were present. So would that find a seconder, please? Councillor Lees, thank you. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. No further questions. All those in favour, please, of approving the minutes? Against? Abstentions, please. Councillor Shelley's abstaining. That's carried then. Thank you very much. We move on to the business on agenda item 10, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, updating investment priority, and I'll hand over to Amanda Brown, please. Thank you. Or Steve Capes. Somebody's going to introduce it. Somebody's going to put the fine tune.
I'll introduce it first, if I may, may Chair.
Yes.
And thank you, members. This is a UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and its smaller brother, Rural England Prosperity Fund, is matters that you've heard about on a number of occasions over the last 2 or 3 years. It's an allocation of £2.7 million that finally got approved for the District Council in April 2023. But Council approved an investment plan for spending that money back in July 2022. The funding in that investment plan is largely proceeding very much on track, and there's some really good evidence in the report before you and in the case studies that are being put on the table in front of you tonight as well, which gives some excellent examples of where that funding is going, some local businesses that are being supported, some local communities that are being supported as well. It is a draft brochure, so any comments would be appreciated. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund is, as members may recall, run by a partnership board. The government did, when it set up the fund, mandated that it had to be run by a partnership board. Our partnership board includes a range of local partners, business and community, and that board, I think it's fair to say, has worked very well so far. So the investment plan is very much on track. Out of that 2.7 million, it's going very well. There's only one area of it, however. Out of the 11 elements in the investment plan, there's only one that hasn't gone quite to plan, and that's the feasibility study that's excitingly titled E14. That element of the plan is what some of the proposals that we've got for you tonight are about. You'll see elsewhere on the agenda that those feasibility studies were intended by the council. You wish to bring it forward to help bring forward your priority of brownfield sites and bringing those forward. We've tried on at least 3 occasions over recent years to recruit a regeneration officer to do that without success. More recently, we've also tried to recruit through the interim market, initially without success. However, I am now confident that we are getting one interim in place that will help with that, and we do have a provisional start date for that person. However, at this late point in the UK Shared Prosperity Fund timetable, there is the funding has to be spent by March 2025. We've been to the partnership board, and following the partnership board coming to you with some proposals for a couple of changes to £165,000 worth of that £2.7 million. And Amanda will tell you a little bit more about those 2 areas.
We've got, as we've highlighted in the report, we've got a couple of areas that we're looking to make some slight changes to redirect the funding. With the feasibility study, we have, alongside the work that we're doing, we've had a contract with Derbyshire Dales Community Voluntary Services that have been delivering community grants since the autumn to a wide range of communities across the area. They've had a very high demand, as you can imagine. It's both capital and revenue funding, and the demand has exceeded the amount of funding that we'd originally got allocated to them. So we've looked at their pipeline of work and their asks coming forward, and the proposal is that we extend their contract to deliver additional work on behalf of a UK Shared Prosperity Fund through an extension to the contract and contracted outputs, and that will increase their contract by 105,000. That will be split across 2 areas. One is for some revenue works and one is for capital works. To ensure that we can make this happen, the funding under the feasibility work is revenue funding, so we do need to convert £64,500 revenue funding to capital funding to enable that to support sort of infrastructure across the community sector. So that is the proposal. The CVS have done an excellent job in supporting communities to bring forward proposals through the application process and go to contract. There are a number of examples on your case study information we've given you. They are just a snapshot. There are others out there that are actually implementing the projects at the moment, and that's supporting both volunteers to come forward and do additional work within the area. In addition to moving some of the funding to the feasibility work and the additional funding for the Community Resilience Grant, we also had a proposal, and this was quite an exciting, different type of piece of work that Ashbourne town team originally came forward for, and that's to do some feasibility work to develop a business improvement district within Ashbourne. A business improvement district, I'm sure some of you have been aware, I think there's been quite a lot of work and information available through the Local Government Association over the years. A business improvement district looks across an area, and it's developed from a business community angle, and a lot of consultation involved, and they put forward and decide whether, as a business community, they want to develop an area which they can impose a levy on. This piece of work is not to fund the business improvement district per se. It's to do the initial development work through a feasibility study. That work will look at the community around Ashbourne and the business community there. It'll do in-depth consultation with the business community there and take forward their views. So it's a piece of work, as a feasibility piece of work, that we can then use as a model across the rest of the Derbyshire Dales. A lot of business improvement districts, and the vast majority actually are within more urban settings, more dense settings. So this would be a really new piece of work that we could do within Ashbourne that we could then use to model in other towns and communities if required.
Questions, Councillor Hughes?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. On that last, I've got a couple of questions. On that last point, what are the terms of reference for this consultancy? I mean, it does seem £60,000 does seem. I mean, on our budget, we get quite a lot for £60,000 in terms of consultancy support in technical areas. Are they going to do market research? Or are they going to do business planning? Or I'm not really sure what this is intended to do.
Okay. Yep, I can answer that,
Thank
Chair.
you.
The feasibility work would go out to an open tender process, and it'll be prescribed by. There has been a new community interest company registered that would take forward this as an accountable body. So we will be part of a steering group to look at the contract that was awarded through the feasibility. There will be to develop a bid and to look at whether it's a feasible bid. The work will cover widespread consultation with the business community. So there's a lot of one-to-one consultation within it. It will develop the paperwork and deliver that. Do the analysis as to whether a bid is financially feasible.
Chair, I'm still not sure what the terms of reference are for this project.
If I may just add to that, which will hopefully address that. I mean, you mentioned two things, Councillor Hughes. One was consultation, and the other is a business plan. Actually, both of those are part of the terms of reference, and that's why it's both the consultation phase with local businesses, local not just in Ashbourne Town Centre, but in the wider area as well. But also, should that indicate that progressing a business plan, progressing a bid is feasible, then developing a business plan to do that. So it is in effect a three-stage process. First stage, initial consultation. Second stage, business planning, and then only if those two succeed, then it will be going to the third stage, which would be developing specific proposals to come forward with a ballot of local businesses. So that's why the price is what it is. I would say though it's up to that amount. It may come in less, and if at the first stage, i.e. the initial point, the consultation decides it can't progress any further, then it clearly wouldn't be anything like that amount.
And who is the business plan for?
Chair, the business plan is for the Ashbourne Bid Community Interest Company in name. They would be the people who would be contracting with us to develop that business plan. But in essence, it's for the businesses of Ashbourne to see, for them to make their minds up whether it's something they want to go ahead with or not. There clearly is people in favour of it at the moment, otherwise it wouldn't have come forward as a proposition from some businesses, but by no means all of them. So it's important for us as a council to know whether that's something that we'd want to support. The reason why it's important for us as a council is not just in our sort of place shaping role for Ashbourne, but also because if it were to proceed to a ballot, that would be something that us as a council would have to oversee. And also, very importantly, if it were to proceed to a bid itself, appreciating that's 2 or 3 stages away yet, but if it were, the levy collection authority would be this council. So there's implications for the council as well. And that's why the steering group that's proposed to be set up would include not just the community interest company and representatives from the town team and the town council, but also from the district council as well.
Do you have a second question?
Yeah, I'm still... I'm worried. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not sure how the other areas that were talked of as changes to revenue to capital and capital to revenue accounts, I'm not sure what those areas are doing and how that all fits together, and I'm confused. I'm afraid I'm confused.
So have you got another question?
Yeah. Can somebody help me out of my confusion?
I can try a little, Councillor Hughes, in some of the other areas, moving aside from the specifics of the bid. I mean, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is confusing. It's got multiple strands. There's at least 11 strands to it. It includes both capital and revenue, and that's why essentially that there's a dedicated programme board to run it. However, the council remains the accountable body, so we do have to sign off some of those changes. With regard to the specific change from revenue to capital, that is so that the CVS, who are undertaking on a different stream, undertaking those community resilience grants, most of those community resilience grants tend to be capital. So they are things like changes to village halls, improvements to village halls, decarbonisation, for instance, in village halls, and that's why they need more capital rather than revenue.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Bates.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Do you think there's enough information out to members? I was privy to an hour-long presentation, and you're expecting tonight for the members with very limited information to agree a £60,000 budget. That's my first question.
Right. The proposal has been discussed in detail at the UK SPF Partnership Board, which Councillor Flitter chairs, and full details were provided there. There is a substantive amount of information here on the bid. We're not looking to change the funding to fund a bid. It is quite straightforwardly a feasibility study for the bid.
I'll come back to that. My question was, members needed that information. You're expecting people tonight to vote on this 60,000, and obviously a lot of people don't know the ins and outs of what the bid is.
This isn't for. I'm sorry if the paper wasn't clear. This isn't for the bid, which is Business Improvement District. This is for funding to be moved to the feasibility work for the bid. It's the feasibility study, which will be part of a contract. A tender will be put out, which will identify exactly all the detail around the tender. It's the feasibility work that we're looking to fund here, not the actual Business Improvement District.
Thank you. The next question was, we're going to, there's a new CIC group formed this week. Why didn't they approach an existing CIC already in the town? Why have we had to set up a new one? We've already got Ashcombe.
Sorry, Chair, we'll swap between us again. I think the reason for that, Councillor Bates, is simply that Ashcombe was set up for a specific purpose, whereas a delivery body for this funding had to be for a different purpose. It might have been that Ashcombe could have re-registered and re-changed its terms and so on in order to take this on, but in the time available, it was seen as quicker and simpler to set up a new vehicle specifically for this.
Right, come back. My last question was, why has the district council not taken the lead? Why has it got to go through a third party?
Business improvement districts nationally, and there are almost 300 of them nationally, almost without exception, are developed independently because they are for the businesses. Local authorities, their role tends to be to do the distribution and the collection of the levy funding. So as this is a real sort of, it's almost, we would call it bottom-up development. It is developed by the business community for the business community, and you know, as a local authority and district council, there would be support there, and we will provide expertise as far as we can, but it actually has to be operated. That's the whole nature of a business improvement district. So it's quite usual that the local authority would take this stance within a bid development.
Thank you. Councillor Buckler, please.
Yeah, it's to do with the. I've got a question about the rural improvement grants. Rural improvement. The rural improvement grant. Since the ending of the Leader programme, is this the main funding mechanism that there's been for supporting rural communities, particularly agricultural operations and other SMEs? And there's a significant increase in the capital expenditure through this programme. Is that because we've had a significant increase in the number of people who've applied for that, and so we've been doing good work in supporting that sort of innovation and development?
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was this funding was brought in partly to replace the European funding, the old Leader funding that supported the rural areas across the district. We've had a really good take-up. It is a combination of community and business support, and it's a mix of capital and revenue funding. So we've seen a real demand. It helps so many small business, micro enterprises, independent businesses to bring forward their investment, and it's about confidence across the area. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It is replacing that old Leader funding.
Were there two parts to your question, Councillor? You're okay with that? Yeah. Councillor Hobson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm confused.com, as with Councillor Hughes here. So the allocation of £60,000 to fund this feasibility study, but we're just giving these people this money. There's been no sort of like openness and transparency about who's getting it. Somebody's just getting that money. And then a bit further on it says, following completion of the tender process for the Ashbourne bid, any residual funding from that 60,000 allocation. Is that the same bit? Is that?
Your question was.
Well, and my question is, my question is, how long has this organisation been set up? We're dealing with public money here. I'm asking you a question with the best will in the world, Amanda. You're not reassuring me with your answers as to this organisation.
The organisation has been set up. Literally, it's made an application to the relevant bodies to be registered this week. In terms of the protection that we have, the tender will be issued by them. It will be an open tender process, so it will go out to tender. There will be a proper scoring process put in place to make sure that the best value, and we will sit on the group that does the analysis of that, so that best value is provided. We can put further steps in to make the payment directly to the company that wins the award. We put it, you're quite right, it does say up to £60,000, and that's because if we go out to tender, it may come in at 40,000. There will be break steps within it to say after the first set of work that has been done, if it is that the businesses within Ashbourne and the people don't wish to take it further, then that contract would be stopped. So that would leave the residual. That's the residual funding that we're referring to.
Thank you, Amanda. You have explained that, but how much money is it going to cost for them to take it out for the feasibility? I mean, 60,000 in total sounds a lot of money, but how much are they going to spend on that? Is my second question. Do you know what they're going to spend?
Sorry, are you referring to
out
the
to that
to the CIC?
Yeah, what are they going to spend out of that 60,000? So basically, they're just there to get the tender process for a feasibility study.
Yeah, absolutely right.
And how do you know it's going to be £60,000?
No, that's why we've put up to 60,000.
But that's like saying we'll just give you anything and
no,
you might.
No, because it will go out to tender, so they will come back with a competitive bid, and the correct one. So we won't give them £60,000. We will give them the amount of the tender. So when they go out to tender, if it comes back at 49,500, that would be our contract with them. And if it came in and the contract wasn't delivering and we had to stop it, as with any of our contracts, and we had to stop it early, they would not have the full amount of funding. Okay. So, you know, that's the management of the risk.
Councillor Nash.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two quick questions, hopefully. I think I read that the district or the county council are consulting about withdrawing the grant for DD CVS, and I just wondered if we were assured about their longevity should that happen.
Amanda or Steve?
Oh, just quickly, Chair. This has all got to be wrapped up by the 31st of March 2025, and no changes that the county council would indicate. I don't think are going to happen any time before that.
Thanks, Steve.
Second question.
And the second question is, what's the process for converting revenue spend to capital spend?
Yeah, we've brought this before you because if it was just purely through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, we would, if we were moving revenue from one priority to another priority, that could have been done through the Partnership Board's terms of reference. What we're actually doing here is turning revenue funding to capital funding. So as part of our financial regulations, we have to bring it, we bring it to members. In terms of the actual process, we ask MHCLG, and they've said, and we've already done that, and they've said, yeah, they're absolutely fine to convert the funding from revenue to capital. When they allocate the funding to us, they give us a tranche of revenue funding, a tranche of capital. They understand that from writing the investment plan, that, you know, there are changes, priorities sort of have slight shifts, and they've confirmed that they're quite comfortable with that. So from a central government point of view, there's not a problem at all. We've got that cleared.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. My questions lead on from the first question from Councillor Hughes. I note from elsewhere in the report and the presentation that the feasibility study funding that's available to local communities and local community organisations is limited to £10,000 maximum, and that also requires a 10% matched funding. So my first question is, a match funding also required for the Ashbourne proposal? My second question is, do we not think that the disparity between a 10,000 maximum feasibility study for other communities and £60,000 maximum for Ashbourne is rather disproportionate and potentially disadvantages other communities? And my third question is, I understand that the Ashbourne proposal has come before us because a proposal was developed in Ashbourne and came to the Partnership Board. Do you not think, linked to the question over funding, that we should also give the same opportunity to local community organisations to bring forward feasibility studies which may, by their very nature and the ambition of the communities, be in excess of 10,000? So do you not think that essentially some more flexibility should be allowed to local communities in respect of the funding that we're making available to them, so that they can realise their ambitions in the same way as we're supporting the ambitions in Ashbourne?
Amanda or Steve?
If I can kick off, Chair, on the match funding issue, that is a good point. 10% match is a pretty low amount by standards. For business grants, it can be as much as 40 or 50%. So asking for 10% isn't excessive. With regard to the Ashbourne feasibility study funding, we have in that case made a request for some match funding as well, and that was as Councillor Bates said, discussed at Ashbourne Town Council the other week, and they in principle weren't against that, and should that be required in 25-26, they have said that there's the possibility to apply for that. So match funding could apply to the feasibility study work as well. With regard to that, I think the key point on the bid feasibility project, should members wish to support it, is that I think it's innovative in two ways. One, it's innovative because there are very few rural business improvement districts. They are mainly of the 200 or 300 that exist. They're for larger towns.
Chair, that wasn't my question actually. My question was should there be flexibility given to the grant funding through CVS to enable local communities to, if they have an ambitious project, to be able to apply for more than the ceiling of 10,000.
Councillor O'Brien asked if 60,000 seemed excessive, and the reason it isn't is because it's a pilot for the whole district. It's not just for one community, it's something that, if successful, could apply to the whole district. So in a sense, you're buying a feasibility study there that not just covers Ashbourne, it covers the whole of the Derbyshire Dales. With regard to the CVS grants, I'll ask Amanda to cover that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're using the same terminology here, feasibility study. Feasibility, the work for the Business Improvement District is a feasibility study, but it is of a level that is widespread consultation with every single business within Ashbourne and the surrounding area. It's then going on to develop a business plan. The feasibility work, and we set the levels through the partnership board following discussion at the board, which does contain DALC are at the table and people with a lot of experience of working with the communities. The levels were set because that was felt that is the type of funding level that most communities would need to take forward a feasibility study, which wouldn't be in the same in-depth levels that we would need for the Business Improvement District. We also have, as part of our original investment plan, we have an output and a key performance indicator that was in the original investment plan of 4 feasibility studies. So again, we're setting the bar so that we can meet with the funding that we've got allocated to it, the number of outputs that are required that were put in with the original investment plan.
Councillor O'Brien, have you had your 3 questions answered as to your satisfaction, or?
I've had answers. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Flitter, please.
Sorry, Chair, I think we're still in questions and mine was a comment and in debate.
Thank you. Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, rather confused, to be honest. So up to 60,000 then, it's not just for Ashbourne, it's for the whole of the Dales, is it? There's one question. Or is it just for the Ashbourne part of it?
Chair, it's for a pilot feasibility study to be carried out in Ashbourne, but if the results are positive, they'll be applicable to the rest of the Derbyshire Dales as well.
Which will then cost more money in other parts of the Dales?
Chair, no, because the feasibility study proving the case will have been made for rural communities. Right. Obviously, individual areas would then have to progress as or wish they wanted to, but the feasibility work would apply to everyone. Yeah,
I know we're talking specifically of this one on Ashbourne. Till these agendas came out, I personally knew nothing about this till the agenda came out, and till we had the programme board meeting for the Levelling Up Fund yesterday. It was the first I'd heard of it when the agenda came out, and I don't think we've got enough information to make that decision, to be perfectly honest, tonight. So could that part be deferred for another meeting or further information, or has it got to be decided tonight?
It's entirely up to members what they want to do. I mean, the Ashbourne Reborn Programme Board's been discussing it since the 8th of March, and it's now at the point via a third-party CIC to be able to take it forward. The place where we're at with the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is we've got something like 6 to 8 months left to run on it, so there's limited time to spend the money. The feasibility work that's been talked about by the town team would take about that amount of time. So I think there's a danger as if members didn't make a decision that might not be able to be done with the Shared Prosperity Fund money, but I can't say that for certain. It's a risk that members might be prepared to take.
Chair, may I come in at this point?
Can I just come on my second question, Chair?
Yeah, okay, after he's asked the second question. May I come in and respond to what we just heard about the Ashbourne Reborn?
It'll be Councillor Hobson first, then you, Councillor Hughes.
I'm not finished
No,
yet.
I realise that. I realise that. I'm just saying...
There's more.
Yeah. Well, carry on with more, please.
Yeah, I mean, why set this new company up? Why could it not just be part of an ongoing job with the town team?
It's a good question, Councillor Lees. It has to be in order to receive money, in order to contract with a consultant to do this, it has to be a constituted body. The town team isn't a constituted body. The other option would have been for the district council itself to take on and manage this contract, and that's something we certainly considered very seriously. The other work that our procurement team has got on has meant that's not been able to proceed. So we were having to look for a third party in that regard.
Thank you. Councillor Hobson, I know you've asked questions, but because it's quite a complex situation, I'm just going to... You can ask another question and Councillor Hughes can ask another question.
Chair, I want to give a point of information in response to something that Steve Capes said.
Do that then, Councillor.
I'm chair of the Ashbourne Reborn Programme Board, and Steve did bring this up at the board meeting yesterday, as Stuart said. It has been discussed. It's only been discussed under any other business. It is not a part of the Ashbourne Reborn programme at all. And I wasn't going to bring this up because I wasn't happy with the way in which it was brought up in the Ashbourne Reborn programme board, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but as Mr. Capes has referred to that and said that it's been being discussed in that board, I feel I now have to bring it up. So yes, when it was brought up, Mr. Capes said that there was support for this bid of the bid project within the council, and I felt, and I'm saying this now because of the way it's been brought up by Mr. Capes, that he was speaking out of turn because the council had not voted on this particular measure, and he was saying that the council supported it, which I thought was out of turn. I bring that up as a point of information to indicate that it's nothing to do with Ashbourne Reborn. This is an entirely separate project coming under the UK SBF fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hobson. Wait for the debate. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank
questions.
You,
We're still in questions.
Yeah, yes, that's all right. Well, I must say, when I'd read the report before the meeting, I thought I understood it, but the more the conversation's gone on tonight, the less I've understood it. So I've got three, possibly four questions. So I'll combine one. What benefit will this pilot offer to a part of the district? So I understand Ashbourne's going to do the pilot. You're saying that this will then be used as a template. I couldn't see that in the report in terms of what those outputs will be. So we're really interested to know what we'll all benefit from. If it does, second question is, if it does output benefits from the feasibility study, how will they be realised in other areas of the district? And thinking about town and village kind of differences and outputs, how will these be regarded within the pilot study? Because I'm sure what works in Ashbourne might work in one of our other towns, but I'm sure it won't work in Matlock Bath or Cromford. And then my last question is, why Ashbourne? Seems to be getting levelling up, kind of lots of work going on, so why is this going to Ashbourne? Why not somewhere else in the district that needs this sort of support?
Amanda, thank you.
Right. Yep, thank you. How will it benefit other areas? Well, as part of the pilot, the initial work, the consultancy that go out and are openly tendered will be asked to do consultation work. That will be documented. There will be surveys done, there will be one-to-one interviews, a whole range of things to engage with the business communities, which are very wide and varied within Ashbourne, from independent businesses on the high street up to, you know, the industrial estate and some of your engineering and manufacturing businesses. So all that detail, how it's collected, the documentation behind it can be held and then can be lifted and used by another community. The business plan, how the business plan will be developed, if it moves to that point. If it isn't, then it would be stopped and no further funding given. If it moves to that point again, the structure of the business plan, the engagement with other organisations in and around Ashbourne and the area, how that's conducted, what's successful, what's not successful, that will all be held, and that will be information that is very specific to a area within the Derbyshire Dales, a predominantly rural area. We could then use that for, so if Matlock Bath could meet the criteria and could decide that they wanted to consider a bid, we could share that information with them and lift it and say to consult with other rural communities and businesses. This is how you go about it, this is what worked, this is what didn't. So actually what we're looking at is cutting down any future costs if needed. There are also very varied types of bid that can come forward. It can come forward as a sectoral bid. There are examples of that across the country, so it doesn't have to be just a specific geographical area. It can be a cluster of areas, but the information that is pulled from this feasibility work, and if the feasibility work results in the businesses in Ashbourne saying we don't actually want to take this forward, again, that I wouldn't view it personally as a negative thing. That would be, it was a model that was tried, it was tested and decided to go no further. That information could be shared with communities across the whole of the Dales who have, you know, similarities to Ashbourne. They may not have similarities to bids that are in the predominantly rural area, urban areas, because the majority are within the urban areas. So I completely understand it is a different concept, but it is one that, you know, we have an opportunity to try through UK Shared Prosperity Fund. The Partnership Board, you know, have considered it and said this is something different. It is going down a different line, but can be a positive for the future going forward, because we can lift and move the information that we receive from there. It's not purely located just within the area of Ashbourne. You asked why Ashbourne when they seem to be getting a lot of levelling up funding. Again, this is complementary work. The funding that is going into Ashbourne at the moment is capital hard capital funding around the public realm and that type of thing. Complementary to that, it's always best practice to put in business support and support for communities, so that those businesses that are there are really robust and can take advantage of the capital infrastructure that's gone in. So it's actually building on what is already there and can't be delivered through the capital investment, through the main levelling up funds. So it's a complementary piece of work that does dovetail and you know, will give that wider information to the wider areas. And I think, yeah, Have I answered the questions there?
Okay. Last question, Councillor Buttle, please.
Thanks very much. Yeah. When I saw this, I assumed it was going to be part of our prosperous and sustainable Dales communities and businesses section of place in the corporate plan. I don't know if I'm right, and I'm wondering how much of this £60,000, if it works, what sort of income to the district are we looking at leveraging it into, and how much we're going to get out? And in section 3.27, I think it is, of the report, it mentions that if it comes together, we're going to have quite a lot of resource in officer time and what have you, having to be brought to bear on the options and possibilities that it may reveal. And I was wondering whether or not that's likely to stop us doing anything else. Thank you.
Amanda?
Yep. The actual costs behind it are all coming from external funding, so they aren't internal funding. This is the Shared Prosperity Fund is external funding. Leverage into the council overall could be quite substantial. A lot of business improvement district areas they impose the levy following the ballot process, following an open process. If it is approved, areas draw in addition, and this would be to the local area of Ashbourne, on average between £100,000 extra up to £300,000 extra. That's where the viability point is. So that's additional income that would potentially be going into the town. That's a long way further down the line. We're looking 18 months to 2 years if that was to come to fruition, and I certainly wouldn't preempt the decision of any business in Ashbourne as to whether this was something they wanted to do, but it is all external to the authority. As a district council, part of the feasibility work will involve costings being provided for a management and administration fee for the district council. That will be part of the feasibility work that is underway, because it's also about assessing the financial viability. Certainly, we wouldn't bring any further proposal to the council that was looking at a deficit. So that's all factored in to the feasibility work.
I think you just said it's not going to cost us a great deal extra if it all works and we will make a profit. Is that right?
In terms of the feasibility work that we're looking at, it's completely externally funded, other than officer time. Moving forward, again, bids operate with a management and administration fee to the operating body, the accountable body, that would then pay the local authority to do work on their behalf. That would be part of the process further down the line. At this point, we're purely looking at the feasibility work, which is part of the external funding. So I know.
Councillor Ripton, it better be a gem. Last one.
Can I just clarify that the 100 to 300,000 you mentioned there, that's the bid money that the bid would generate, not in additional leveraged in money that would come as a result of the bid.
It would be that is the average that a bid across the country actually generates.
So my understanding of this, I think, is this is a very expensive way to effectively get businesses to come together to agree to create a pooled fund to do stuff. So there is nothing to stop local businesses coming together, putting the money in and doing whatever they want in their local area. So point one, question. Point two, this works in urban areas because you've got large numbers tipping in a small amount. I would question the applicability in rural areas where you've got small numbers of businesses, because the whole point of this is it works at scale, yeah?
This is which is precisely why we're saying let's be brave, do some feasibility work, test the model.
Or to Peter's point, how do we actually make sure we've got small rural areas equipped to access funding that they need in a really efficient way, which I guess is the question we're all trying to get our heads around.
Yeah. Which is precisely where the feasibility work will look. It will test the businesses within the area as to whether this is something they want to come together and do. And you know, really that's the crux of the whole feasibility work. If it is that they don't want to do that, then again, that's so be it. That's the business community's prerogative. If they do decide that they do want to take it forward and develop it, then we can use that information to look across the wider area of the district. So it's a tricky one.
Right, so we've had questions, and what I'm going to ask now is... Do you? Right then, so what I was going to say is, you know, if we've heard all this, we've read the recommendations, we've heard a lot of somewhat, to me it's confusing, and I'm sure to many other people it's confusing. So would anybody like to make any recommendations? Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to try. I'm not against business BIDs at all. I mean, I think they could be very, very useful in particular locations, and we don't know whether Ashbourne is a suitable location or not. But I can understand why it's a good idea to have a look at Ashbourne to test it out, and it might work for other market towns as well. However, there are red flags here. First of all, there are no terms of reference. We don't know what the CIC will actually go out to tender with. That's the first one, and that for me is a showstopper. The second is the CIC we know nothing about. Again, that's a showstopper. The third is there are no breakpoints in what is proposed here. So we're saying £60,000 or nothing. Well, we might get some money back. Yeah, wait, pigs might fly. Is it pigs or elephants? I don't know. We need if we're going to go out to tender, we need proper terms of reference before the council. We need to know exactly what the CIC is, who is in it, who has responsibility for it, what our role is in it, how Karen manages to keep control over the costs, its costs, and so on. We need to have that level of control. It's not in the paper. So these are the sorts of red flags that I think are missing. Scaling to the rest of the district. I agree with my Labour colleagues behind me. It might work you might scale it to Matlock and possibly Bakewell. I'm not so sure, because the industry makeup in Ashbourne is different from that in Matlock and different from that in Bakewell. It won't make any scrap of difference to Tideswell or anywhere else like that, where it just won't apply. And so it's not something that we should consider to be at all usable anywhere else in the district, as far as I can see. Therefore, I propose that we take the recommendations and take out those that are associated with the BID and ask for further work to be done on those and brought back to council, so we have proper terms of reference. We know what the governance arrangements are going to be around the project. We know how we can cut it short if businesses in Ashbourne are not interested, and you could do a £5,000 piece of work to find out whether the business. You could telephone around them and find out. You could have a public meeting and find out whether the businesses in Ashbourne were interested. It doesn't cost a lot of money. I held meetings last week in another country, and we had businesses at that meeting. It was just a 2-day meeting, and then we got lots of opinions back about that. You don't need to have a long £60,000 study to find out whether people are interested. And if they're not interested, we'll use the money for something else. So I move that we accept the recommendations that are independent of, and I can't figure out, my question was going to be which of these recommendations are related to the BID and which aren't. So my proposal is that we accept those recommendations that are independent of the BID recommendation.
I think Mr. Capes would like to just say something. Thank you.
Only to help with that. If members choose to go with with what Councillor Hughes is proposing. I think that will be recommendation 3.3, which is specifically to do with the bid, recommendation 5, and recommendation 6. I think those are the only ones that are specifically due to the bid on my reckoning. So that would be 3.3 you'd remove, recommendation 5 and recommendation 6. I hope that would do what you require.
Councillor Hughes, do you want to just check that, and then if that's what you would like to move, we'll see if we can find a second. Yes? Yeah? So what we've done is we've taken out 3.3, 4, 5, no, sorry, no, not 4, 3.3, 5 and 6 from those recommendations. So that's Councillor Hughes's. Councillor O'Brien, would you like to come in?
Well, I would be interested in seconding that proposal, but I would ask Councillor Hughes and colleagues to consider one other aspect which I alluded to in my question, and that is the £10,000 limit which is proposed to be imposed on feasibility studies in to be undertaken by other local community organisations. And I think that is I would like the same flexibility to come forward with a study which may cost £12,000, for example, or £14,000 in other communities, to give the same flexibility which was given to this organisation in Ashbourne to come forward to the programme board with a specific request for £60,000. Now that opportunity is not offered to any other local community organisation. So to get round that, I think I would like to see some flexibility in that ceiling of 10,000, and some wording to the effect that if you like, just use a word, in exceptional circumstances, bids in excess of £10,000 would be considered for approval. So what I would ask, and I'm explaining the reasons why, what I would ask if Councillor Hughes would be prepared to add that to his new proposal, and that would affect the relevant recommendation which.
Is that not, Councillor O'Brien, developing policy that needs to have some little bit more consultation with officers, and it isn't for this meeting?
No, because there's a straightforward recommendation, Chair, in the report which says the transfer of resources from one feasibility subheading to another feasibility subheading. It simply says that there should be a cap of £10,000 on the amount that can be awarded. I'm simply saying that we add a rider to that, and in exceptional circumstances a grant in excess of 10,000 may be considered.
Steve?
Just saying that sounds very reasonable. We can work with that. That's fine. So we can make sure we can make sure it's written into the minutes in some way or other.
I'd be happy to take that as a change. I think exceptional and justified.
Right. I'm just pondering while we get the wording together. Unless you've got it written down, Councillor Hughes, have you? Have you got the wording written down that you'd like it to add it to your motion?
Well, I think we're going to. I'm moving recommendation 1, 2, 3, 1, and 3, 2, 4, and 4. And in addition to that, I don't know which paragraph the £10,000 appears in, but it would 3.15 would be ordinarily £10,000 and exceptionally unjustified or exceptional above that in exceptional and justified circumstances. Or the words to that effect.
And does that find you to second that, Councillor O'Brien?
Yes, that's a brilliant suggestion, David. Thank you.
Right, so Councillor Flitter, you wanted to come back in some debate because it's been moved and it's been seconded now. So if you want to come back and give some clarity to it all.
Yeah, well, I'm glad this report has come to council because it allows me to say something that I believe is important later on. But don't we make heavy weather of life? You know, how long have we been debating this tonight? And it puts me in a difficult position as chair of this group. I mean, people talk about confusing. People make it confusing because, to me, you know, it's pretty simple. And to talk about, I mean, I don't know now what people actually want, what members want information coming back. Because it's not we that go out to tender, it's the CIC. It'll be their business, not ours. And this has been the work of the UK SPF board, which we've had some very influential members, including the East Midlands Chamber, who offer some very, very serious and good advice. And I'm just wondering where we go, because it seems to me that everybody wants to know everything about everything, and that just is not the case. You cannot be involved and expect to get information on somebody else's business. The CIC was set up because I believe it went out and Ashbourne Town Council was asked to take this on, and I think it was, if I be corrected, but I think it was the clerk that was concerned about the workload. And that is exactly the reason why the CIC was set up, because we as a council haven't got those resources to carry this out. And why is that? Because the projects that are ongoing at the moment are taking up every minute of every day of our members of staff. What happens if we fail in the Ashbourne Reborn? That is a very important project which we must keep on track, not divert staff to doing other things. And the questions of why Ashbourne? Well, quite frankly, Ashbourne got off the backside and wanted to do something. Nobody else has done it till we've suddenly decided there's some money available. And it's the same with Hathersage or Eam. They put a scheme forward that wants feasibility funding for housing, and that's great. But to say that that shouldn't be given because other areas may want to put something in is ridiculous, because we've only got so much time to spend this money and make something of it. Many questions tonight have come out that we don't really know the answer to, and that is the point, because a feasibility study is to raise these points, get the answers and get a business case. Simple, even I can understand that. So, you know, I am rather disappointed at what we've been discussing tonight. But I do want to say that one of the reasons I sit on this council is because I want to improve business and the economy of Derbyshire Dales. Not Matlock, not Ashbourne, not Bakewell, but the Derbyshire Dales. And in 1.5 it clearly states that the project aims to support business diversification, growth, adaptation and long-term resilience, which helps strengthen and foster local pride. That is important. That's an important piece of what we hear about. And through the workload that our staff have taken, you've heard in 1.7 our investment plan is on track. So what's the problem? I can't quite understand how you're going to get that information that you require, or even what authority you've got to actually move in those directions. But what I wanted to say tonight, and I wanted to pay tribute, because I sit on the chair of this group, which is a partnership group, and as I've said before, a lot of influential, clever people on there that are giving sound advice. And let's face it, Steve and his regeneration team do a marvellous job with limited resources. But I do want to pay tribute to the two ladies that are with us on that, and that's Amanda and Jill. And they are excellent work colleagues. They know what they're talking about. They steer us in the right direction, and they deserve some credit. And I hope that gets back to them, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maelstrom.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say I don't claim to understand everything in this report. I don't feel I need to understand everything in this report. What I do understand is that we've got £2.7 million from central government, which we have to spend by next March. My feeling is that we should be grabbing that and getting it spent on the Dales as quickly as we can. In order to achieve that, this council, I understand from the background report, has already approved the investment strategy for that money and has already set up the partnership board, which Councillor Flitter chairs. So having already made the decision to delegate the spending of this money, I think we should let the board that we've set up to do that do it and not micromanage every pound and penny that this board is allocating on our behalf.
Yes, please. I obviously support the amended proposal. I think for Councillor Maelstrom to say micromanaging every pound or penny, we're talking £60,000 here. It's a lot of money. You know, people will be looking, our people, our council taxpayers, whether it's come from the government or whatever, it's our money. And as councillors, we're here to challenge, I hope in a polite way, but we're here to, we are the elected members. Officers make recommendations, elected members make the decision. I just want to say something because I'm having all these emails I've got to say it at some point. You said the consultation will be documented. I presume that's through the whole thing. So we will, I'm all for having information. Perhaps some people aren't. I like the information so I can check. It says consultation work will be documented, and I just want to say this in open council. I'm having emails already say with the traveller consultation, you can't attach any corresponding documents or evidence to support the consultation, so please amend. Thank you.
Thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask Helen to read what the proposal is so everybody is understanding of it, and then we'll move to a vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just so for clarity on, for members know what they are voting on. So if we take agenda item 10 and the recommendations put already, recommendation 1 stays as is, recommendation 2 stays as is, recommendation 3I and recommendation 3II stays as is. I've got recommendation 4 stays in. I've got recommendation 5 comes out, recommendation 6 comes out, and what is inserted is the wording that the cap of £10,000 per study is relaxed in exceptional circumstances. Thank you, Chair.
Does that fall okay with the proposer and the seconder, Councillor O'Brien? Yeah.
Well, except that last point, Chair, I suggest is added as paragraph 3I or 3.1 because it relates in fact to the £105,000 extension.
Granted. Is that all right with you, Councillor Hughes? Yeah, just for confirmation, 3.3 does come out as well. Yeah, so it's been moved. Councillor Maelstrom.
I'm really sorry. I just would like to clarify if a member's preference is for the original proposal, how do we vote for that? Do we need to propose an amendment to this, or do we have to vote this down?
We'll take the amendment first, and that will be voted upon, and then if that fails, we'll come back. Yeah, Councillor Butcher.
Yes, if you don't mind, I feel it's important to say that the original proposal was
please.
Whilst there are questions and concerns, I think can be easily dealt with by the officers proceeding as they would like to proceed, so that the proposals do happen and the money does get spent in the way that Laura Maelstrom is proposing. So clearly these things are overseen internally. I'm sure the financial side is well overseen by Karen, and I'm sure the work that they're undertaking is to a high standard, and I agree with Councillor Fliss's view that it's all well managed as far as he's concerned, and I would prefer that it continues, but taking account of the concerns that have been expressed by Councillor Hughes and others.
Thank you. Right, so Councillor Buckler, did you want to say something? Because you were saying something. It's up to you.
Yeah, isn't the proposal for, that's the substantive motion, there hasn't been an amendment. This is what Councillor Hughes is proposing, is the motion that he's, so if we want to go with all of the recommendations, which as Councillor Maelstrom said, I'm also in support of, that's an amendment, because that's saying I support the recommendations that were written in the original report isn't what's been proposed.
Yes, so you vote against the amendment which is being proposed at the moment.
But the actual, it's actually been put by Councillor Hughes and seconded by Councillor O'Brien.
It has, but that's not an amendment. That's the motion. And so if we want to say, actually, we want to make an amendment, which is to go with the original recommendations, that's an amendment which we need to do before the...
Point taken. If that's what you're wanting to go for, then that's fine. So...
Yeah, I'd like to propose an amendment that we go with officer recommendations.
Right.
Chair, I think that you can't do that because under points of order, you can't do that because its amendment should complement something. You can't just rescind something through an amendment.
It hasn't been rescinded, though.
Well, it would have the effect of rescinding.
And it is in the spirit of it, isn't it? Because it's the same things. It's
no, but it's doing the exact opposite of what the motion is saying.
What I'm going to say, right? What I'm going to say now is it's 8:20 and we'll have a 10-minute comfort break, right? We'll have a 10-minute comfort break where everybody we'll get ourselves together, and would anybody like to authorise and recommend that we extend the meeting from 8:30 till 9:30?
I'll do that.
Thank you. Seconded. Anybody? All those in favour? Right. So we'll reconvene here at 8:30 and we'll go till 9:30. Thank you. Can we take a seats then, please? Thank you. Can we sit down and strap in? Right, members, thank you. I'm just going to ask Helen to clarify something in relation to what we've just been discussing for quite a long time. But if you can, Helen, please. Thank you.
Chair, just to recap where we are. So obviously officers have made recommendations in the report. We've had a series of questions and debate on the item. I read out some of the recommendations that were being suggested and were moved and seconded by councillors Hughes and then O'Brien. They were recommendation to amend recommendation 3I, but to keep 1 and 2 as is. So 3I would then read the extension to contract for Derbyshire Dales District Council for voluntary services, £105,000, as set out in section 3.1 of the report. And following on from that directly, the cap of £10,000 per study is relaxed in exceptional circumstances. That we remove, Steve, for confirmation please, remove recommendation 4. Not remove, retain recommendation 4. And that we remove recommendation 5 and 6. It was moved and seconded, so that became the substantive motion on the table. There was then a suggestion of an amendment to that, which was to go with officer recommendations in full. I can't hear you.
I don't want to disturb Councillor O'Brien's amendment in relation to the £10,000.
That was part now, because that's been moved and seconded. That is the substantive motion.
Yes, so I'm not seeking to amend that part of the motion. I'm seeking to add back paragraphs 3 and 2, 3 little 2 and 3 little 3 and 4 and 3 little 3, 5 and 6.
3.
Add back.
So what are we right in saying that you want to approve, or you're seeking to move an amendment for the actual, all the original recommendations, with the addition on 3 for Councillor O'Brien's...
I'm seeking to put back what...
Well, what you're doing then is you're seeking it to go with officer recommendations,
yes,
are you not?
Plus
that one from that alteration from Councillor O'Brien.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but the effect of it is that I have to add back because the proposal has already taken them out.
Okay. Chair, I'll leave it to you if you want to ask for a mover and a seconder.
Right. So are you moving that in as amendment, Councillor Maelstrom? Does that find a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to say anything on this matter? If not, I think we've said plenty.
Chair, could you just read out what the amended version of 3I is, please, then? 3I1.
So it will be that in accordance with the decisions of the UK Share Prosperity Fund Partnership Board meeting held the 20th of June 2024, amendments to the investment plan are approved as follows. The extension to contract for Derbyshire Dales Council for voluntary services, £105,000, as set out in section 3.1 of the report, and the cap of £10,000 per study is relaxed in exceptional circumstances.
Thank you. Does that find a seconder? Councillor, yes, Councillor Whitehead seconded that. So we'll move now to the vote on the amendment.
Can I speak on that?
You can speak on that, Councillor Hughes.
The reason why I wanted to remove 3, 3 and 5 and 6 is because I don't believe there are governance arrangements in place for that £60,000. And the reason I don't believe that they are in place is because there is no project terms of reference for spending that money, and there is the CIC there's no, as I can see it, there's no constraint on the CIC for spending that money in any way it wishes, providing it does a feasibility study of some kind. So that isn't, in my mind, that is not sufficient for our purposes. We have responsibility for spending money, whether it comes from central government or whether it comes from our ratepayers, and we need to exercise that responsibility. And just because it's going to be exercised according to these recommendations, not by ourselves, not by the partnership, but by something lower down still, does not absolve us from the responsibility of using that funding sensibly and appropriately. And the lack of terms of reference means that we cannot tell whether the funding is going to be used responsibly and effectively. So I cannot support the amendment because there is a significant lack of governance in place, and local authorities suffer from when they don't put appropriate governance in place. And the governance that I require for support would be appropriate terms of reference and some sort of relationship defined between the CIC and ourselves. That is missing. Both of those things are missing from this report. Therefore, I cannot support the amendment.
Councillor Flitter.
Thank you, Chair. Well, in support of the amendment, I have to just refer members that have commented on of Ashbourne getting this money, and it should be going somewhere else within the community. And on page 51, you will see work that the UK SPF Fund Board has actually supported businesses right from Hathersage down to Sudbury. And this is the work they hope to carry on. And one great concern for me in support of the amendment is that if we delay any further the help that wants to be given to Ashbourne CIC, then we will lose this money. And it's no good saying we can put it elsewhere. We have a responsibility to service the schemes that have come forward. Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Well, I have a different concern about the proposal, and I actually support looking at. I support the principle of examining business improvement districts, but what I'm concerned is that there is no much funding required for this project. It's going to be 100% funded through the public sector via this council, which is a complete contrast to all the other feasibility studies which are undertaken at communities, where the community has to demonstrate their commitment and support for that initiative through 10% of match funding. If this project is truly supported by the Ashbourne community in its initial stages, I would have expected that support to be expressed through some element of match funding. That would be a demonstration to me to say that actually it's not just words behind the support, it's something tangible in the form of match funding. So 10%, as been said by Steve Cates or Amanda, is a very small amount of match funding required, and I think that'd be entirely appropriate for an initiative of this kind, as I said, to demonstrate the commitment from the community to the feasibility study to have some match funding. So without that, I don't find myself able to support the proposal as tabled.
Thank you. Well, we do have an amendment to the original motion, so we're going to vote on that. So all those in favour?
Chair, can I just add a little bit onto this? Just hit me out as regards, if we take everything that is read, as Councillor Maelstrom has asked for, but rewriting 3.3, stipulating that money is to be issued to get a feasibility to a CIC company that comes to the district that has been fully vetted and authorised by the district council, i.e. the members of this partnership. That's adding on to your bit, so that we know exactly who they are and what they are, because at the end of the day, as we've said before, it isn't the council's money and such like. It's money that's come from government, and it's ways to get it out. And I do agree that if there's money there, that the towns, villages, everybody and communities should be able to have a chance at getting grants to improve themselves. And I think the biggest issue here is that we don't actually know the CIC. It was made up this week, as Amanda stated. Yeah. Now that's just like a group of people coming off the street saying, we're a CIC group, we want to do such a thing. Give us 60,000. Yeah? Well, who do we know who they are, what they're doing? So could we just add the onto the amendment of going back to the original, but on the 3.3 stipulate that a CIC that comes with all regulations, that sits with Steve Capes and Amanda and is approved by the partnership board that runs all this funding, the UK funding, and they agree that they are the right people to send it to, then can we add that in? I don't know how you feel on that.
Thank you. Councillor Maelstrom.
I would oppose that alteration. I think the purpose of the partnership board is to do exactly this sort of scrutiny that Councillor Bull is talking about. It's not the job of this council to scrutinise every application to the Prosperity Fund partnership board. So I would prefer to leave my amendment as it stands.
Councillor Whitehead.
Well, all I was going to suggest would be, Laura, would it be acceptable to sort of accept that amendment, not with those wordings, but sort of to cover David's point as well, that the council makes a decision today with the caveat that terms of reference, other governance is showing, because I think that's the concern, and that's probably right, that we should have.
But we don't know whether the partnership board has already done this. I would have thought it already has.
Well, I'm hoping Steve and Amanda would have told us.
My point is,
if
it's the
they
job
had.
of the partnership
I
board
think
to do this. We've created a partnership
as
board
mover
for
of
this
that
purpose.
amendment, are you happy to accept it?
No, I don't think I am.
No,
My
okay.
amendment is the purpose of it is
Right.
we delegated this to the partnership board. We should let the partnership board deal with it.
And Councillor Whitehead, you seconded. Are you happy still to go along with Councillor Maelstrom's amendment?
I'm still happy, Chair. I was just trying to find a small compromise to bring other members along with the decision.
Thank you. Councillor Flitter, you just wish to say something?
Yeah, I can give Councillor Bull the assurance that we will look into the CIC, and if there is anything untoward, then it may make a decision otherwise. But that is for the board, as Councillor Maelstrom pointed out. But you can take it from me that we will be looking into that issue and we will act appropriately.
Thank you. So now we'll move to the vote on the amendment. Thank you. So all those... David, I would rather go to the vote because we're going around in circles. We've got so much more business that's got to be... No, David. No. Thank you. So we will go to the vote, and this is on the amendment from Councillor Maelstrom, seconded by Councillor Whitehead, to go back to basically to the original recommendations with the slight amendment that Councillor O'Brien put up. So all those in favour, please raise your hands. And against, please. And any abstentions, just Councillor Bull.
I'm
Thank
neither
you.
for or against. So I've abstained.
Thank you. So that amendment is carried. Thank you very much.
Now you've got to go back to the original.
Now that is the substantive motion. Sorry, that's the substantive motion. So can we vote on that then, please?
We've just voted on the amended motion. Sorry, Chair.
I've got. Sorry, it's my fault. I've got so much going on here with people saying this, that, and the other. It's absolutely. So, right, we'll go back to the original substantive motion and we'll vote on that, please. Apologies for that. So that was the initial one by Councillor Hughes.
We've actually voted on the amendment, and it is the amendment that now turns into the substantive motion.
So it's got to be voted again.
Yeah, sorry. So it is now the amendment is the substantive motion. So can we vote again on that, please? Thank you. All those in favour? And all those against, please? And any abstentions, please? Right. So the substantive motion is carried. Thank you. Because we've taken eternity on that particular item of business, I'm advised by Helen that we will have to alter the agenda, and because there are certain things that have to be dealt with this evening. So we will now, what we'll do is we'll go straight, we'll miss out 12 and 13, or 11, 12 and 13, and we'll go to item 14, future operation of Monsal Head public convenience. Would anybody like to, I'm going to move it, would anybody second it? And can we have those in favour to get the business transacted? Right, anybody against? Any abstentions? Councillor Shelley? Right. So we will, that's carried, that amendment there, so we'll go on to agenda item 14, which is the future operation of the Monsal Head toilets. And that is...
No, you've voted to go to that agenda.
We're going to the item. We're going to agenda item 14, which is the future operation of Monsal Head toilets, and Helen's going to speak to us on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I'll catch my breath after all of that. Thank you for the members' patience. But just for clarity, you agreed to reorder the agenda, which is why the vote was taken, to make sure there was consent in the room. Very briefly, Chair, members have a paper in front of them this evening in which to take full operational control of the District Council of Monsal Head public conveniences. The recommendations are set out on the front of the report, and can I just draw out, please, that members give thanks to current and past directors of the community interest company that ran Monsal Head public toilets for the work that they have done, and obviously note that some of them were previous councillors and obviously current councillors of Derbyshire Dales District Council. Just by way of context, there was an urgent decision taken in the summer in which to take control temporarily of the toilets following some changes to the community interest company itself. That urgent decision was time limited and the time runs out today. So members, it is absolutely vital that you vote on this evening and agree or not to take control of those toilets. The the relevant items with regards to the financing of the operation of those toilets are contained within the report, and I'll take any questions that members have this evening, Chair.
Any questions, please? Councillor Burford.
I'm just wondering, Chair, at what point we'll decide whether to change the payment method rather than the honesty box that's there now, because we have talked in the past about the possibility of adding a charge onto the car parking charge.
Ellen?
For
Chair,
instance.
sorry, Chair, through you, I understand that that's part of the business of both the car park working group and the public conveniences working group as well. Thank you.
Councillor Whitehead.
So with this decision, I think it's exactly the right thing to do, but should we see this as a precedent for how we will view other closed toilets across the district?
Alan?
Thank you, Chair. I think obviously each decision is made on its merits. There is a public conveniences working group that are working quite hard at this moment in time to look at current public convenience provision and bring forward options for taking back operational control. I'm unsure of the deadlines associated with any of that work, but I'm sure that Ash will provide an update to all members in due course.
Councillor Burford.
Yeah, may I, Chair, propose officer recommendation on this one, but I would like to speak. Do you want me to do that now? Yes?
You're moving the recommendations as that. Does that find a seconder then, please? Councillor Boothroyd. Right, Councillor Burford, do you want to speak in debate then?
Yes, please. So, I hope this is simpler than the previous agenda item that we had.
So do I.
I do have the pleasure, if you like, of being a member of the Toilets Working Group. It's absolutely fascinating. And I do thank the other members of the group for their work, which is, as Helen said, is continuing before we make our final recommendations. I do also thank the officers, Ash, Mike, Sam, for their input. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody. But this is the political bit. Councillor Flitter spoke about good news. This is good news for this progressive alliance. These toilets were closed by the previous administration in 2018 when clearly that should not have happened. Luckily, if you like, the actual building was not demolished, was not sold and then demolished as in Darley Dale, where we've now got we've got to make decisions about what provision we do in Darley Dale, because at the moment there is no public toilet. So I think by voting for this tonight, we hopefully, as from today, we will, as an authority, as a district council, be permanently in charge of the operation, and I would imagine that I'd be very surprised if anybody votes against this. Monsal Head is a much visited area of actually the Peak Park, but anyway, it's a much visited area, and to be without toilets would, you know, is just not acceptable. I do also would like to say that, you know, it was taken over by the community interest group, and I know Kelder was part of that, but not the only one. But that was not sustainable, and so we, as the Toilets Working Group, have made the decision to recommend that we, as a council, take them over, and I hope everybody can agree that that's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure you'll remember that it was Councillor Gareth G from Bakewell that brought this original motion through. I hope everybody will support it in a positive cross-party way. I seconded the motion when Councillor Butcher brought it through. Like Mrs Burford, I don't want to miss anybody out of thanking anybody, but I know there was an awful lot of work on the last minute, particularly with a plumbing issue or whatever, so thank you to all the officers involved in that. It's a real positive for the district. Thank you.
Right, so it's been moved, it's been seconded. Let's fly to the vote. So all those in favour, please. Against? Abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Agenda item 15 is the provisional capital outturn and revised capital programme. Karen, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report seeks Council's approval for the provisional capital programme outturn for the financial year 2023-24 and a revised programme for 24-25 to 28-29. I'm sure members will be aware that the capital programme is the Council's planned expenditure on capital projects such as buying and enhancing land, vehicles, buildings and equipment. The first part of the report presents the provisional financial position of capital spending for 23-24. It's provisional because it's subject to external audit, which will take place later this year. The report explains that expenditure in 23-24 was £1.3 million less than budgeted. Details of spending is given in Appendix A to the report, and the financing arrangements are shown in Table 2 of the report. Explanations for the under and overspending for each project and whether each project has concluded are provided in paragraph 2.4 of the report. Approvals sought to carry forward £253,454 of the provisional underspend from 23-24 into 24-25 for projects that have slipped and are delayed. Arrangements for budget monitoring have been strengthened recently with new monitoring reports. At a meeting yesterday, I reminded senior managers of the need for robust budget monitoring and timely action. I pointed out that retaining amounts in the capital programme for projects that were no longer needed or would cost less has the result that other projects that we might want to do are not being able to be included in the programme. The rest of the report seeks approval for updated capital programme for 24-5 to 28-9 and its associated financing. The revisions are summarised in Table 3 of the report, and they result in an additional £171,255 to the programme. So the revised capital programme for 23-4 to 28-9 is shown in Table 4, and it totals £38.3 million, which is £1.3 million less than was approved in the capital programme that members approved in February. Table 4 also shows that 90% of the programme is financed by grants and contributions, with the remaining 10% coming from capital receipts and the Council's reserves. The fact that 90% of the capital programme is funded by grants and contributions shows how successful the Council's been in securing this important funding, but it also can act as a risk to the future programme. If we can't seek funding in future, then our capital programme will slow down considerably. Within those projects funded by grant are things such as Ashbourne Reborn, public sector decarbonisation schemes and affordable housing, which we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Appendix C to the report shows the impact of the financing on the Council's reserves and explains that at the current time the forecasts show that even with this programme we should have just under £2 million left in capital receipts and the capital programme reserve that could be used for future projects, and that's a much improved position than in the past. I ask members to approve the report's recommendations.
Any questions, please? Councillor Whitehead.
Thanks, Karen. Really excellent report, very clear. I just had one question, which was around, which I didn't, not something I knew about, so I just thought I'd ask about it, which was in section, well, I think it should be probably 3.1, but it's down as 2.9 on your paper. The EV charging infrastructure scheme, so it's moving to DCC. Is the £320,000 that we'd allocated for this also moving to DCC? And what safeguards have we got that they will invest that amount of money into the Derbyshire Dales and not up in Bolsover or down in Swadlincoe or somewhere else?
I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to that question at the moment. I don't know if any of my other colleagues do.
Would you be able to come back
Yes, I
to
can
us
ask-
on
I can
email,
ask-
to all councillors on
yeah.
email with some clarity on
Yeah,
that?
I
Because
can ask Vicky
I think a lot of us feel this is a really important area because we don't have enough charging points across our district already. We have significant amount of car parks. It would have been great to see us spending 320,000 in our car parks, safeguarding for the future. So I'd really like to know the rationale for this decision, because I'm not sure it's the right one.
Yeah, if you could email your question to me so I can make sure I cover all of it, and then I'll forward it on.
Thank you. Councillor Burford Martin, thank you.
Yes, Chair. I can first of all agree with what, or concur with what Councillor White has just said, but I'm somewhat confused by the paragraph numbers. I think he was as well, actually. It seems to go from 213 to 4, but it,
yeah,
I think it needs to be clarified somewhat.
I apologise for the fact that we put a heading in of 3 and the paragraph numbering seems to have gone wrong.
Sorry, Councillor O'Brien.
Yes, thank you, Karen. I was heartened by your reference to not encouraging inclusion of sums in the capital programme which are redundant, as it were. In relation to capital project 625, which I see there's 1,043,447 earmarked for expenditure 2025-26. Are you confident that project is going to be taken forward?
Well, it's been left in the programme at present. I don't personally supervise, monitor all of them. So that's the Bakewell Road development in Matlock. At the moment, that's still been left in the programme, and I'm sure, I don't know if Steve wants to come in, but I'm sure that will be kept under review as part of regular budget monitoring.
Chair, all I can add is that Council made a decision, I think it might have been its March meeting, I can't remember when, to leave that in at the moment, but it will be for Council at some point to decide what to do with that funding if it's not required for the current scheme.
Thank you. Any more questions? Does the recommendations find anybody want to move the recommendations? Councillor Hughes?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to move them. A very clear report as usual, and a good result as well. Thank you.
Councillor Shelley?
Yes, I'd like to second, please.
Thank you. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. We're going to debate. Does anybody wish to say anything further on this matter before we go to votes? Councillor Hobson, thank you.
Just briefly, Chair, just to say thank you as ever to Karen and the people that assist her in this. Really complicated report, some really good things going forward, so we really appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
Councillor Buckler?
Yeah, it was just to reiterate the point that Karen made earlier on about you know, a £1.9 million or £1.3 million underspend on a £9 million programme is quite significant. You know, just to support the work that she's doing to make sure that that doesn't happen that doesn't happen as much as has happened in this case.
Thank you. Anything further? Then we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of the 7 recommendations, please vote. Any against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you. Agenda item 16, provisional revenue outturn. Karen, it's you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides details of the provisional financial outturn for the District Council's revenue spending, so that's spending on day-to-day activities, again for the 23-24 financial year. And again, it's provisional because it's subject to external audit. The report shows that the provisional outturn on the revenue budget for 23-24 was a surplus of £3,469,443. The key reasons for the surplus are summarised in the table at 1.2 of the report, and as explained in the report, the reasons for many of the variances from budget were things that were outside the Council's direct control, things that were due to changes in the economy, interest rates, changes in service use or demand, and also contractor performance. Most of the areas contributing to the surplus are also one-off rather than recurring items. As with the capital programme, we've recognised that revenue budget monitoring was not as effective as it should have been during 23-24, and some of those variances should have been recognised much earlier. Over recent months, the finance team's gone into a lot of effort into improving revenue budget monitoring reports to make them easier for budget managers to use and to highlight variations from budget so that effective action can be taken. The finance teams provided training and support to budget managers, leading to enhanced engagement, more budget meetings, and increased understanding of budgets. The corporate leadership team also now receives new style reports to enable directors to undertake more effective budget scrutiny. At yesterday's senior management team, both I and the Chief Executive reminded senior managers to undertake robust budget monitoring every month, which should lead to significant under and overspends being identified much earlier so that timely action can be taken in future. To balance the Council's accounts, it's necessary to approve transfers to reserves for the £3.5 million underspending, and our proposals are identified in paragraph 2.4 of the report, for which approval is sought this evening. The final part of the report relates to the medium-term financial plan. This has been updated to reflect ongoing impacts of the variances that we identified for the 23-24 outturn. We've also identified things that have events that have taken place since the the MTFP was approved in February. So the key one of those, of course, is the election of a new government earlier this month. And as part of that, I've reviewed the assumptions that we made about the business rates reset and also the fair funding review. You'll remember these made a significant impact on our future projected income levels. There's now less certainty that those reviews will take place, and so I've deemed it appropriate to remove them from the MTFP until there's more certainty about when, if they will take place, and if they do, what the impact on the District Council will be. So the table in 3.4 of the report shows at the top line the savings target that members approved in the MTFP in February. So this included a savings target of £1.1 million for 2025-26. The second row of that table now shows the revised savings target in the new MTFP, and that's reduced to £144,000. And you can see that over the medium term, there's now a sustainable revenue budget. And the full MTFP is shown in Appendix 4 to the report. The more pessimistic budget, the more pessimistic MTFP, which does still include the fair funding review and business rates reset, is shown underneath table 3.4, so members can see the difference. I ask members to approve the 5 report recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Karen. Any questions, please? Councillor Whitehead.
Thanks, Karen. Again, excellent report. Just a couple of questions. With us sort of having such a kind of high sort of underspend and kind of trying to put this money kind of into reserves, into our surplus, I find it kind of, I think I'd prefer to see it kind of earmarked for something. And kind of while I absolutely celebrate Ashbourne, Matlock and Bakewell having green flag status, I do feel that there's a degradation of other park facilities in our smaller villages, and I'd really like to sort of kind of see that if we're underspending, we should be looking to try and funnel money into some of these critical pinch points that our communities are facing. So I just wonder what the rationale was by trying to kind of keep such a high surplus when we've got so many issues that we could face. And just a second point, would carrying a high surplus or a high reserve in our accounts for an extended period of time, because I'm aware we have carried one for a little while. Will this have any implications for future settlement with central government in terms of how they look at us and what we might expect to get? Because if we're not spending our money, they won't give us any.
Thank you. And those are really good questions. So on the first one about the reserves that we're proposing to transfer the money to, you'll see that some of them are quite specific. So £1.5 million to the waste vehicles reserve. So that's planning ahead for when the vehicles, come to the end of their lives. Some of them are less specific, such as the 794,851, which was the balance, into the capital programme reserve. So that's recognising that we did have an underspend. In the past, we didn't have enough funding for capital projects, so we're putting that money aside, and from now on, we know that money is now available, and we could use it for the types of project that you've mentioned, investment in parks and so on. So it's put into a reserve, ready for members to decide how to spend it. It's just a timing issue. So obviously, we haven't yet made those decisions. There is some reports. There's a report coming to Community Environment next week with some new bids for spending to the capital programme that could actually use that funding. The second part of your question about the rationale for a high surplus, we didn't go out to make such a high surplus. In fact, in some ways, it's an embarrassment to have such a high surplus, and that's why we've been focusing on improving budget monitoring. We'll be putting more challenge into the budget setting process next year to make sure that, I think some of the budgets crept up when we had high levels of inflation. So we inflated the budget 10-11% when inflation was at that high. By the time we came to spend that money, we didn't actually need that much, and I think some of that is still in there. So we'll be putting a lot of challenge into the budget process this year to try and remove that, as well as all the effort we've put into monitoring the budgets. You'll always get some under and overspends, but I've never known it before to be that magnitude. And finally, your very good question about implications for the future settlement. One of the things the government requires us to do is submit very detailed information at the end of each financial year to show what our balances are, and they now ask for details of reserves. They don't ask us to show every specific reserve balance, but they categorise it into revenue reserves, reserves that effectively smooth the budget, which would be like our local plan reserve, the election reserve, reserves for capital programme commitments, so that would be like the waste vehicle reserve, and also the general reserve, which is there for financial resilience. Now, in the past, there's definitely been a concern that particularly the general reserve, the unallocated reserves, as they appear on the questionnaire, could affect your future settlements. But I know the District Councils Network, CITFA, the Local Government Association have all recognised this. And there's a conflict between, the previous government outright said, spend your balances. But equally, we need to be resilient. If we have high levels of inflation or a surge in demand, we need to have something to fall back on. So CITFA, the LJ, the DCN are all trying to put that across to government that we need, it's a balance, we need a reasonable amount. So hopefully, well, in the past, I think it might have influenced the settlement. I'd hope the new government will listen to us more and that it won't have such an impact.
Thank you.
Fantastic answers.
Councillor Franks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Karen, and I've noted the 200,000 line now put aside as a reserve to contribute towards the provision of a permanent travel site. My question is this going to continue into future years? We're actually looking at 2 traveller sites, not just one, and the cost of land, as we know, is quite expensive. Is the plan to continue to add to this budget if needed?
I think as we move forward and identify sites, we'll be able to get more accurate costings of what they might cost, and at that point we would do a business case, bring it into the capital programme, and put in place the required funding. If this £200,000 seems to be not enough, we might need to look at using some of the corporate plan priority reserve, but that's the process we'd go through.
Councillor Hughes, question?
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that some money has been put into the staff recruitment budget, recruitment and retention budget. 211,000 underspend on staffing, though, indicates that there is a significant problem. I think that's one that's well recognised by the CLT, so I'm not going to dwell on that. But I think it would be useful in light of agenda item 17, ultimately, I mean, I'm not asking for it now, if it was possible to understand that 211,000, how it would figure out if we were actually paying the staff rather than paying interim staff, if you know what I mean. So we're paying consultants at the moment to do what would be operational recruited staff roles. Is there a net cost in doing that?
The £211,000 underspend did take account of the additional spending on advertising, recruitment and interim staff. So it is a net figure.
So if we actually managed to recruit people in the future, that figure would obviously change, but it would be nice to know how it would change ultimately, and what games we can play with various incentives and stay within our budget.
Yeah, I believe that's something that the scrutiny committee are going to look at.
Right, thank you, Karen. That's the end of the questions. Does anybody want to move the 5 recommendations? Councillor Whitehead, you moving them?
Very happy to move. No further comment.
Councillor Flitter?
Yeah, seconding then, Chair, I'd just like to say to Councillor Franks, when she raised the question of the 200,000, it came out of a leaders' meeting where we decided to reduce 900,000 to 700,000 into another pot and put that 200,000 in to enable us to look for a site if and when one came available. And to my mind, I was certainly intending that in future years we do budget for the same, not at that amount, but if there's any spare monies, it would go in that pot, because we all know the price of land and we all know it's going to take some time. So it could be and it could be not be, but we are looking for that permanent site as well, so I can see a need for a pot of money there that will allow us to go out and purchase land that we wouldn't be able to if there wasn't something in that budget.
Thank you. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. Anybody want to speak in debate? Councillor Bull?
Not a debate, just like to make a comment, and I think the whole of the council will say the same thing. Well done, Karen, for what you do, and I'm glad that you don't listen to others when they say spend the money, because there are umpteen councils around and about that have gone bankrupt, and you are keeping us on the straight and narrow, so well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien.
Yes, a really clear and concise report, so many thanks to Team Karen for that. But I'm going to make the same comment that I've made on 4 previous occasions this report's come up, so apologies to those who have heard it before. And we always have a very significant underspend every year, and what that actually means to all our residents and households is that they're paying more council tax than they need to. So I'd like to go back to the question that I think very relevant question that Councillor Whitehead asked, and that is I would like to see our residents seeing some tangible benefit from these underspends. you know, not some long-term plan, but some immediate tangible benefit, which says, okay, we've underspent, there's various reasons for it. We've taken more council tax off you than we need to, so here is something tangible we're giving back to. So rather than say, let's think about it, and we always say we'll think about it, but we never actually come up with anything tangible. It's always left to the next year. So I would like us to do that. And you might say, for example, well, okay, we won't increase our green binning emptying fee for next year. You could quite easily say, okay, here's a tangible benefit for all your residents. We've got this huge surplus, so we're not going to increase your emptying your green bin. Something, we could do something simple like that, which I think would reflect the partnership we have with our residents. That we've underspent, but you get nothing back for that. We put it away for some worthy cause. So that's a plea yet again for officers and members to work together to say, yep, we've underspent. Let's see if we can support our communities in making use of that.
Councillor Ripton.
I think if anybody wanted an idea, I think we've all received an email in the last 24 hours from the Derbyshire Law Centre based in Chesterfield, who provide legal services to some of our most vulnerable residents. Their funding from Derbyshire County Council is being cut, and I wonder whether we might want to consider diverting some of our funding to support them.
Thank you. Well, it's been moved and it's been seconded. Nobody else wishes to speak, so all those in favour of the 5 recommendations, vote now please. Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried unanimously, thank you. I'm just going to plead with everybody. Some of us had a 4.5-hour meeting the other night, but there is still a bit of business that needs doing here tonight, and basically if it doesn't get done now, it's going to get put onto another one, and then we're going to have a great big, even bigger agenda. So can I move that we go for 1 more hour maximum? No? So can we go to... So basically, I'll say till 10 o'clock, yeah? But can I just please, I'll move it in a minute, Martin, that we go, but can I please just say that, can we just keep questions to relevance? And one thing I have noticed tonight is some of these questions could very easily have been asked earlier to the officers, and that would prevent, we've all had this for a week, so that's something, just an observation from me. But I'm moving that we'll go till 10 o'clock. All those, anybody seconding that? Thank you. All those in favour, please. Anybody against? Councillor, 2 against, but it's carried sadly, so it's left with you. Right, we'll move on to agenda item 17, which is the interim organisational staffing of resources. Paul, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm going to help you with that latest plea because I'm not going to give a lengthy introduction. I'll assume that members have read the report. There are 4 recommendations. Principally, this report is dealing with the interim situation regarding agency staff, primarily in development control, which members have been appraised of in the last few months via email correspondence from myself. It outlines the proposals in terms of the retention of those staff in accordance with existing contracts. In one case, that is the development manager proposing to continue to fund that up until the end of this financial year, whilst we continue with recruitment attempts for a permanent appointment to that position. Outside of development management, 2 further areas of pressure in the organisation. One is in regard to data protection and information governance, on the back of a report recently considered by the Governance and Resources Committee on the 18th of July. So there is a request in here for some additional funding to top up funding members have previously approved for this. And then finally, some additional funding requested to provide interim capacity within our legal team due to a short-term capability and capacity issue regarding contracts and procurement. So 4 recommendations, Chair. £72,000 is being requested from the General Reserve to fund these measures.
Questions, Councillor Hughes?
Can I move it?
Well, I think
I was going to lose that.
Right. So there's no questions. So Councillor Hughes, you're moving this for the 4 recommendations for approval. Councillor Whitehead, you'll second that. Anybody wish to debate this matter?
Just to say briefly, I've really appreciated getting the emails from Paul, keeping us informed with what's happening. I think it's really useful, saves people keep ringing up all the time. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to say anything? If not, we'll move to the vote. So all those in favour, please. All those against? Any abstentions? That's moved unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much for that one. The organisational resources and resilience, it's you again, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. So the last report was dealing with interim resources. This is dealing with permanent resources. So following the organisational restructure Council approved back in January, and the retirement of the former Director of Regulatory Services, we have had discussions internally as a corporate leadership team, and also myself with the political alliance leadership, to identify areas of the organisation which require additional permanent resource to be made. A number of areas: community environmental services and dealing with the issue of health and safety, because we currently have no dedicated health and safety resource following Tim Braun's retirement. The second area is in the Place and Economy Directorate. Members have heard this evening already the difficulties of recruiting in that particular area, so we are seeking some additional resource to bringing some temporary positions there. I'm flagging up within the report corporate and customer services. Due to Jason Spencer leaving the organisation, there is a desire on Helen's part to review the structure in that part of her department, so we will be working through that and we'll bring proposals back to members in the very near future. A more significant one, programme and project delivery. I'm highlighting the fact, as I've done on numerous occasions, regarding the lack of any strategic capacity within the organisation to drive forward significant corporate projects which cannot be accommodated within normal day-to-day business. So again, following discussions with the PA leadership, the proposal is that we do bring in a manager on a senior grade to assist us primarily with the waste and recycling contract and the leisure contract, both of which will expire and will be due for reconsideration in 2028. And then finally, at paragraph 211, I do highlight that this is not the end of the story. There are other organisational pressures that we are currently working through. There is likely to be a further investment in our housing service to address PI priorities, and they will be subject to further reports to Council as we conclude those assessments. Thank you, Chair.
Happy to move this, Chair.
I'd like to second, if that's all right. I'd just like to refer to the programme and project delivery. I think this is absolutely essential. We're absolutely up to the... We have no spare capacity in that area, as I understand it. And Laura Simpson, who's an excellent programme manager, who's looking after Ashbourne Reborn, was taken away from other duties, as I understand it, which meant that those duties are understaffed at the moment, so this is absolutely essential.
Thank you very much. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. We'll just enter the debate. Anybody wish to say anything further on this matter? No. So we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of recommendation 1? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll go on to agenda item 19. Paul again, thank you.
A final one from me, Chair. So this is to give members an update on the Derbyshire Strategic Leadership Board and also the East Midlands Combined County Authority following the election of Mayor Claire Ward on the 2nd of May. Firstly, Strategic Leadership Board, that has now met. There has been a change in the chair of that particular board following the first meeting. That's now been assumed by the leader of North East Derbyshire District Council. That has resulted in the County Council reconsidering its position and resolving to withdraw financial support from the SLB and also withdrawing its support as the host of the SLB. So that is posing some challenges at the moment, which the chief executives and the leaders of the district and borough councils are currently working through. Insofar as the actual operation of that board, the terms of reference have now been formally approved. They are the same terms of reference that members considered back in January of this year, so there's been no substantive change to what members have already approved in that regard. At the time that we considered appointments to this board, it was to be Councillor Flitter and Councillor Slack. However, following the change in leadership of the Labour group, one of the recommendations is that Councillor Butcher now assumes the substitute representation on the D2 SLB. Moving on to the EMCA board, again that has now met, has been attended by myself and Councillor Flitter. Various appointments have been made to the board. The Derbyshire District and Borough representation has been taken by Councillor Gilby from Chesterfield and Councillor McEwen from High Peak. However, Derbyshire Dales has secured representation on a number of the advisory committees which are at 2.8 in the report, namely Councillor Flitter on Transport Advisory and also as a substitute on Skills and Employment Advisory, Councillor Hughes, Member of Overview and Scrutiny, and Councillor Buttle as substitute on Audit and Governance. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Any questions, please? Any questions? No questions. Would anybody like to move the 3 recommendations?
I'll move it, Chair.
Thank you.
And thank you, Paul, for the work that you're doing on the Chief Officer group. Things will change as Paul has outlined. Even this week I've been in discussion with Labour colleagues in Derbyshire. Sorry. I've been in discussion with Labour colleagues in Derbyshire, and we all are the same opinion that, you know, we've got to rectify this, and I think moves are afoot to expedite some of the issues. But the main issue is whether the decision by the County Council was a legal entity. Once we know that, then we can move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hobson.
Just to say, I think that Councillor Lewis has been cleared of any breach by the Scrutiny Committee only recently in regard to this. Thank you.
Are you happy to second this then, Councillor Hobson? Thank you. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. Anybody wish to speak in debate, please? No? So we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of accepting the recommendations as read? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Councillor Shelley. That motion is therefore carried. Thank you. We're now going to nip back to where we were after the debate that we had before. Agenda item number 11. Councillor Flitter.
Yes, Chair, this is, should be an easy one really, but these days you never know. Yes, we've done all the hard work in preparing a corporate plan, which is noted as the Derbyshire Dales Plan. I never really understood that because it is our corporate plan, and the only difference, this is for documentation for members of the public, hard copies that have been produced. But at the council meeting on the 29th of February, members approved the corporate plan, which included some of the key themes. You've got all those key themes in your document, and you've got actions that we're proposing to take. However, unfortunately, there is an error on page 63 in the agenda pack, which includes an early draft of the outcomes of the housing stock and quality of rental stock and housing allocation. Therefore, than the approved outcomes. So a supplementary page which you've got in front of you will replace that, and I so move, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions at all? Councillor Shelley.
Only a brief one to say that it looks like there's a bit of a duplication of paragraphs between pages 66 and 67 as well, but I'm sure that can be ironed out later in the final print version or whatever.
Are you therefore wishing to second it then, Councillor Shelley?
It's a beautiful document.
Thank you. Any further questions before we go into debate? It's been moved, it's been seconded. Anybody else for debate? No. So we'll move to the vote in relation to the recommendation the Derbyshire Dales be approved plan 24-28 be approved public circulation. All those in favour, please. Although anybody against? Any abstentions? That's therefore carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda item 12, and Helen, you're going to tell us about this one.
Thank you, Chair. So before members this evening is the Performance Management Corporate Plan final outturn for 2020-2024. With the recommendations is just to note and obviously to keep us on our toes with respect of continuing to monitor performance as we move into the new corporate plan, which we've obviously just had presented by the leader. As you will see, this is really good news for the District Council. We've performed incredibly well over the 4-year period that is outlined in the outturn of 2020 to 2024 across a variety of the council services covering waste, finance, planning and a range of other areas. Just to draw members' attention in particular, Chair, to our delivery of actions achieved. We got 28 actions achieved but slightly later than planned 3 and action not achieved 2. So just to put on record thanks to members and to council staff for the successful outturn across the years identified. Thank you.
Questions? Councillor Flitter?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, because on one of the areas that didn't fully meet the target, we talk about external grant funding to secure feasibility work in Worksworth area, Middleton Road and Cromford Road. I'm just wondering what the status of that is now. When are we going to try and revive this, or is it viable to revive it?
Chair, I'll probably ask if you'd allow Steve to answer that question.
Be delighted to, Chair. In fact, members have just approved something to move that forward, which is that interim senior regeneration officer post, which is exactly what's needed to move that forward, Chair.
Any other questions? Anybody wish to move? So Councillor Flitter moved it, Councillor Hughes seconded it. Going to debate. Anybody wish to speak in debate? No? Right, we'll move on to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendations 1 and 2? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 13. Helen, it's you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a further report, but in more detail, over the performance of the Council over the previous financial year, 23-24, and a very similar picture in terms of the performance of the Council. A slight increase in actions achieved later than planned, but still very good performance across the Council's services. Karen actually mentioned earlier in her presentation to members about conversations that we've been having with the senior management team, and particularly one we had yesterday. We're talking quite a lot about different ways in which we can monitor and manage the council's performance, and we've recognised that we are actually probably have quite a small KPI dashboard already. There has been lots of conversations at scrutiny committee about the council's performance, and subject to conversations with the chair in due course, we're hoping in which to expand the list of KPIs that we collect and report more about our performance to members, and also internally and externally. The council, whilst it is small, it is incredibly mighty, to paraphrase probably quite poorly Councillor Shelley earlier. We do very, very well as a district council in terms of our performance, and we really do need to share that with our staff and our wider stakeholders as well.
Questions, please. Oh, Councillor Boothroyd and Councillor Shelley.
I just have one question, which I suppose relates to the KPI information, is when we have these appendices from the Office for Local Government and we are comparing ourselves in terms of households, do we incorporate the fact that as a district I think we have more empty households due to the holiday home and that second home
issue, and therefore we might look really good on paper when you compare by household, but our households are smaller and some of them are empty or half empty.
Just through you, Chair, the offlog data is quite interesting, and it's very difficult sometimes actually to do proper comparisons because it's not clear what the data set is that they are using. So like all data, we need to treat it very, very carefully. But I note the point, and I'll provide further information to members on that at a later date, if that's okay, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shelley.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. Well, one's certainly a question. I'm not sure about the other one. Page 98, there's a reference to regeneration and policy and a response awaited following landowner contact. Does that outstanding point there relate to economic development sites or housing sites?
Chair, that was a mixed use site, and that was in Q1. Q3. Since then, as I've said, we've now got someone in place who will hopefully follow that up.
Okay, and whereabouts is it, or them?
The central area sites that we're referring to are in Wirksworth. It's the same ones that were in the one just now.
Okay, and my other point is really just the question which I think Helen was indicating would be taken up there. Yes, scrutiny did suggest some other KPIs which are the kind of things that some of our residents are particularly interested in, and certainly in terms of the planning data, if we could have a KPI relating to timing on enforcement actions for planning, that would be, I think, of great interest to people. Thank you.
That's noted. Councillor O'Brien, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. A question I'm regularly asked by residents in Hathersage, and this relates to the long-standing project to install electric vehicle charging points in the car park there, which has been in action for a number of years now, but is one which we've not been able to deliver. And I note it's now effectively gone off the balance sheet because the project's been transferred to Derbyshire County Council. Can someone give me some idea whether that whether there is a commitment to that project? So I've continually reassured the residents of Hathersage that yes, this council is committed to the project, and I was given that assurance earlier this year. But now that it's disappeared from, as I said, from our balance sheet, I'm less certain about the future of that particular project. So is someone able to give me an assurance?
Well,
thank you. It's definitely not falling off at any balance sheet. In fact, we're just in the process of collecting the Q1 performance updates against the corporate plan, of which the EV charging is within. So we're hoping to give an update to members on the progress of that project in due course, Councillor.
Okay, do we have an idea of what in due course means?
End of August.
That's very specific. So, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a question. It's on the offlog data, and the one that I'm struggling with is total debt as a percentage of core spending power. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because ours is 53.8%, whereas the England median is 457.5%. And I'm just intrigued by how it can be so variable across.
Karen, can you enlighten Councillor Hughes, please?
Yeah. So the way that offlog calculate that is that it's as it says, they look at the value of council debt and divide that by that council's core spending power. Clearly, the level of debt across councils varies considerably. Some councils have no debt. We have some debt, £5.5 million. Some councils have lots of debt. So I think it just reflects the big range in debt that councils have.
So that means that some councils have 4 times their core spending power in debt.
Yeah, because that's an annual figure for core spending power.
Yeah.
The debt might be spread over 60 years.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Nash.
Thanks. I'm a bit confused by Helen's answer about the EV charging points, because I thought as part of Karen's presentation we said we've moved 320,000 to county. So is it still our project, or are we expecting that report to come from county?
So I'm not completely. Oh, sorry, Paul.
Well, I just might be able to add a little bit, that's all. The reason it's transferred to the County Council is because they have secured additional funding. So the programme that we were working up with the County Council, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't changed. But they are going to be delivering it direct, accessing funding that they've secured, but working in partnership with us in terms of the priority sites that we've identified. That's my understanding, but I'll get Ash Watts to send clarification to the Hathersage Ward members in particular, just to make sure that that is the correct position.
Thank you. Councillor Buttle.
I think that's exactly what I was told by Joe. Our project, our identified targets are car parks. We've just handed the money over to the Derbyshire County Council, and they're just going to do it for us.
Thank you. So does anybody want to move the recommendations 1 to 4? Councillor Whitehead.
Yeah, I'll move them, Chair. Don't wish to speak on them.
And Councillor Hughes.
Yes, Chair. I think they show how well managed we are. So I think congratulations are warranted to all staff in Derbyshire Dales. I think it's an excellent set of monitoring statistics.
Thank you. So anybody wish to bring anything up in debate?
Yeah, Chair. Well, yeah, I mean, that was my point that I was going to raise, actually. The last two reports that you've discussed are down to our excellent staff that are dedicated to the Derbyshire Dales, and they show that in the way that they perform their duties. And they also, might I add, that they offer some sound advice, and I think we all should sit down and listen to that advice and not just think about what we're going to say afterwards.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter. Anybody else? Well, it's been moved, it's been seconded. If we can go to the vote, all those in favour, please. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much for your perseverance, and apologies for my brain fade on agenda item 10. Thank you.